Oh, mate, I'm trying not to laugh at that. But yeah, we had some production problems there, just a little bit. But this is another edition of By the Numbers, sponsored by Alphadraft. I am your host, Richard Lewis, and with me, back in the Arctic wastes of the northeast of England, it is Duncan Thorin Shields. How you doing, mate?
Yeah. You like this, Richard? You know, on like my underjacket. Like, I've got a jacket on top of other stuff, Richard. On top of an undershirt, anyway. Yeah. But it's sort of like got like a little woolen inside, like they have up north, you know, around the Yorkshire area. Like, yes, to keep me warm with my block.
Hey up, Ecky thump. Yeah, so you're looking good though. You're looking good. I'm liking. You've got the Game of Thrones beard back, so that's what we all like.
I'm ready, Richard. Apparently, winter's coming, and you know, during the winter. Maybe some sort of major thing will be happening. I might be. Oh, I've said too much. I don't know. But I was psychically just guessing what might happen in the future there.
And look, it's like I tweeted during DreamHack. You know, we do aim to be majorly entertaining, which is that's what we're all about, really.
I mean, just imagine, Richard, because I've been repeatedly told by experts on the topic that actually my behavioural analysis desk is why I don't do majors.
Yes.
So imagine if I was to do a major, and then you know. I was right there. It was the best major ever with all the format, the casters, everything we all want. And I was just like, Thorin sends his regards.
I know, it would be pretty sick if that happened. I've been told as well on multiple occasions on Twitter that I'll never do a major. And of course, I've done a major. As of you. So it's pretty crazy. Although we've never done one together, which...
To be fair, Richard, I've done 100% of the majors held in really sick first world Western countries.
That is too edgy for this time in the show, mate.
All the ones held in Sweden, mate. I'm nailing those ones. You know, I'm waiting for the other majors to come up to my standards, and then I'll do them all. You know.
So.
Let's start on that note.
Let's definitely get in the casual xenophobia as early as possible. It's worked for us so far. So anyway, why am I saying we? I was never involved in it. I had a great time.
You were my right-hand man, Rich. You were my script writer. You know, like when those early Simpsons episodes everyone loves. Everyone always mentions that like Conan O'Brien was in the writing room and stuff. You were very involved, Rich. You know, and I thank you for your efforts. And we built this brand that is Thorin. You know, it's obviously couldn't be a real person. You know, but it's brilliant writing, isn't it? And the acting performance. You know.
I liken it to vintage Seinfeld, actually. You know, it's that's what it is. It takes a great bunch of comedic minds to be able to put together the scripts of your life. When people realise you're a character just like Casey Tron, that's going to be like the fucking saddest day for esports. So.
It'll be so sad.
Oh, it will. But like once you've dispelled that illusion, it's like finding out Father Christmas isn't real. There's just no coming back from that. It's a watershed moment. So hopefully we just keep it on the down low. And it never gets out. But look, so here's my question to you. I had two ways of structuring the show in my mind. And this is the way I think we maybe should do it. Because we were at DreamHack London, I think almost like a recap of it might be somewhat superfluous. But I think it's important for maybe people who didn't get to watch it and placing context to other stories in the viewers. But today has gone fucking mental in Counterstrike. Like, it literally has. It's like one of the craziest Counterstrike days I've seen in a long time. So I will ask you, you are the star of the show. Do we do the news first and get in a DreamHack at the end, or do you want DreamHack London first and then we build up to the news?
Yeah, let's just build up to it. Actually, let's get the other stuff out of the way, and then we'll go towards we'll go chronologically, basically.
Okay. So, well, DreamHack London, we were there. Of course, it was a historic moment for DreamHack because it was the first time they'd done an event in the UK, and it's actually probably one of the first times the UK has seen sort of a sizable event from a non-domestic. You know, kind of a producer, you know, not a multiplayer, a Gfinity, for example. So DreamHack did go there. And, you know, I'll be honest, I don't think DreamHack will mind me saying this. It was a little bit rough and ready when we got there. They had a very challenging build of the stage and the infrastructure and everything that meant they were there. Kind of, in terms of it being a nice, polished DreamHack production, I don't think it was quite up to their usual standards, if I'm honest, if I'm just being honest. Which I hope DreamHack won't mind at all. But I thought we overcome a lot of the challenges collectively as a group, both production, talent, and everyone else, to make a really good show. But just to sort of talk about the first day, 10 best of ones that we got through with delays. It was a pretty fucking grueling event, actually, from my point of view.
No, it was getting rough towards the end. Like, you know, in movies where they're like, right, we'll set up camp here, you take the first watch, and there's some guys dropping off to sleep.
Yeah.
That's like what people were like at the end of the first day, mate. Because we'd actually been on camera for about 14 hours or something ridiculous by the end.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. I mean, like, there were several times when we just sent the camera live because we had to. And, like, we didn't even have 4 people on the desk. Yep. It was just like... And then towards the end, for the very last game, a lot of people... went home, of course, and the casters closed it out. The youthful Henry G and Sadikist were the last men standing. So good to them.
I mean, like, as usual, just to give people a little insight into the behind-the-scenes stuff. If you notice, day 1 was when we had all the crazy banter and all those clips were all up the front of Reddit, etc. Day 2, way less banter. Only a bit every now and then, because first of all, we had the best games there, but also... if things were running more tight schedule, etc. Day 1, we almost had to fill on almost every single game. And that's not always DreamHack's fault. Sometimes it's like players or there's issue with the PC or whatever it might be, you know. A lot of it's just external stuff where they have to just, they have to fill time. But like I've mentioned in the past, what would you rather have? Because that's the thing. What people get wrong, okay, is they think, right, what I'd rather have is more analysis. No, that's not the option. We've done the analysis, mate. What you can have is a static screen with a countdown or maybe just nothing and dubstep. Or you can have us doing some jokes and maybe along the way also putting a little extra topics in, but just kind of lubricating the whole conversation and keeping it moving until the point at which we are then ready to go into the game. And like listen, if it's up to you. You can, if you want, by the way, and you don't like that stuff, just treat that as if it was the static screen. As soon as we start going into elongated banter bits, just take that as your 10-minute break and go and have a cup of coffee if you want. But if you don't, I think it's something extra for people to enjoy, you know.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, and like, again, I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important that people do realise what goes on behind the scenes. So the first thing I wanted to address was exactly that point that, you know, look, I know it wasn't a tight desk, and I take responsibility for that. You know, I'm the host, it's my desk. You know, I'm perhaps not as militant as Sir Scoots, and maybe I need to be a bit more militant. You know, and we were maybe bantering more than we would at any other time, but the reason for that, of course, was that we had time to fill. It was like you say, what would people rather have? If you want that dubstep and a static screen, then fine, let us know. We'll go have a break and get something to eat. Like, it suits us, actually. But what I don't want us to be a broadcast experience where you end up like ESWC and it's like a time for a short break like every 5 fucking minutes because they got problems. I want the viewers to be, at least there'd be something happening on the stream so you can be entertained. Now, that might be childish in the opinions of whoever's watching it, or you might not enjoy the banter, or maybe you might find the analysis flippant and throwaway, or whatever, but ultimately there are going to be some people who are enjoying it. I think what we can all agree is that a static fucking screen, nobody enjoys that. It's no one sits there going, wow, this fucking screen is electric, look at that overlay. You know, no one thinks that way. And the other thing
here's the thing, just to quickly jump in. One thing that Scoots taught me, because you have to realize, when it comes to like production stuff, Scoots is like my guru, you know, he's my Yoda. He knows way more than I do. And by the way, way more than most of the people do in production and esports, believe it or not. Absolutely. So I always ask him like for his perspective on stuff. And what he always tells me, like at this last event I did with him, the Sevo one, he was telling me at that event, like when we would have big time to fill, he would actually purposely think of it in his mind, like, okay, we did the 10-minute build up to the match, then suddenly he hears in his ear, you know, there's problems, etc. That's when he goes to the fill material, because he's going to fill until they tell him like, right, 2 minutes. Then he's going to bring it back to the topic, build it back up again, then send it into the game. Because the problem is, if you build it up to like the excitement level and all the context, then you're basically told fill for, well, they don't even tell you how long, that's a sick thing, but let's say they said 20 minutes. You can't maintain that level of intensity on all the information you're doing and keep it all in people's minds. In a way, you have to sort of break it up a bit, like, okay, we're going to take the energy level back down a bit, have a bit of fun, then when it's ready time again, you build up, like, there's a process to this. It's not just willy-nilly, right?
Yeah, and it's like, but what people don't realize as well is, you know, sometimes you get told at the most inopportune moments that you're going to have to fill. So, you know, we could do a great tight segment and be like, right, predictions, gentlemen, how do you see this one going? Okay. And then just as you go, and now we're about to get into the game, you get the message. Right, now you need to fill. Sorry, there's been an error. There's been a PC crash. And you go, and now we're going to get into the game in just a moment. Duncan, I know you said 16-9, but why and then you've got to try and pull it back. Like, the full stop is the prediction, and you know, and sometimes you have to kind of go over and past it, and it is a bit messy and a bit sloppy. But that's a problem with esports just in general, I think. You know, we don't have that tight level of TV production, and actually, when it comes to esports games, there's always going to be crashes and little gremlins in the system that can come up. But here's the other thing I really wanted to address before we move on and start talking about the tournament, and that was like the amount of threads that I saw where it was like, I can tell that everybody hates Thorin right now, and they are just so sick of him and his entire existence. And you can tell that Henry G hates Richard Lewis. And look how bored Sadikist is. And Henry and Semler hate each other. And Anders and Semler have clearly just had sex because they have warm afterglow. Like, just all these people at home, right?
Yeah.
Just fucking...
Basically just writing live fanfics as we go.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, just to let you know, right, like, one of the reasons why, say, for example, the whole Raheem thing blew up and was so kind of offensive to everybody is exactly what Duncan said at the time, that when you're doing these events, you have a camaraderie, right? And now, when you're seeing the same people over and over and over again at events, you do form a bond. Like, you know, you're going to go through like a 24 hour or 48 hour potential. It's an ordeal. We have no idea how good or bad it's going to be, but once more into the breach, dear friends. Now, when you're comfortable with people, sometimes you will say things and people will be like at home, that was a bit sharp. But it's the kind of thing you would say to a mate, or other times, you know, maybe the flow won't quite be so right, but it doesn't mean we all suddenly fall out and fucking hate each other. You know what I mean? Like, I actually enjoy going to events because they are the times I see a lot of these people. I don't get to see Sadikist and Henry as often as I would like. I see them at events. It's great. No one hates each other. We're all actually friends. And at the worst case, we're professional about we all have to work together, and we're going to work together maybe 6 to 8 times a year. So the idea that there's any tension there is completely fucking ridiculous.
Oh, here's a great one, Richard.
Yeah.
I'll break the fourth wall, as it were, and tell people a little bit of something that goes on. Okay, so there was actually a point in the event where I can't remember which segment, but I'd fired a load of shots at Anders. Again, listen, I can't narrow it down that much, guys. You're going to have to give me more info. I was firing all these shots at Anders, you know, insulting him, all that good shit. And after I'd fired a load at Anders, this is how you have to understand how people think of these desks when they're on them. After the segment, when we go to the break, Semler comes over and goes, hey, why have all the shots going at Anders? Fire some of them over here, you know. Because he was annoyed that he was just still at the end, not getting us anything. So you have to realise it's an act, guys. It's a fucking entertainment at the end of the day. It's also, I mean, in that particular case, it's just because, you know, when you see Anders, you just get mesmerised. I mean, it's the way he has that little smile on his face, like he can just take anything. You just want to, you're like, shall I stab the knife deeper, Anders? Is there anything in there I can take? And all you want at the end is for him to go, and you go, I got him. Got him, fine. I've never done it, though. I don't know how you can do it. I don't know how you can penetrate that massive, beautiful casting hype. You can't. You
just can't do it. And that's the other thing.
Usually one little prick can let down the whole big balloon, but I can't. I haven't managed to do it, guys. I can't do it.
We call that little prick Raheem. But that's me done. See ya. Anyway, but like the reality is the banter actually is worse off the fucking.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah, like I mean, you know, that's why I wanted to start uploading.
Yeah. They had a Sadikist where all you can hear is us just crying, laughing in his face, like, he's done you. They've actually done you, idiot. You're not even looking at this. We were just going into his face, weren't we? And he was, by the way, even he was loving it. Like, they got me. Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. Like, right? People think it's like living the dream, for example, like when you're doing, these events. But you know, you don't have a set schedule. You don't get a lot of breaks. Like, I'm not going to say it's as hard as working on a building site, or whatever, but it can be exhausting in its own way. And you know, you form a bond with the people you're working with. You have to have that level of like gallows humor and banter. And there's never been an instance I can think of where I like there's ever been any tension when people are working. Like, I literally can't think of a time. So people need to stop concocting these deranged fantasies and just sort of understand that we're right. Even if we weren't friends, which most of us are, we're professionals. despite what appearances might look like. So there you go. So that's that. That's the behind the scenes shit. Right, let's talk about the fucking games. Day one, not really a lot of upsets, not really a lot to write home about, and I thought some of the games were a little bit underwhelming. But of course, big talking point was EZSkins beating Renegades first of all. Now it's interesting. EZSkins are at something of an impasse, I think. Henry did allude to it several times on the stream that the government, the UK government, has actually been in touch with websites like CSGO Jackpot, I believe, and whatnot, talking about sponsorships and whether or not their services will be suspended. Now, this obviously has the potential to impact on the EZSkins business and therefore the support for the team because they are a salaried team. Now, the question to you would be, regardless of what happens there, although I would like your thoughts on it, did you see enough from EZSkins to think, yeah, well, with a bit of, spit and polish, they could maybe get in that top 20, top 25. You know, they did beat Renegades, a very accomplished team.
I mean, top 25, top 20, it is getting pretty thin on the ground once you get that deep. Like, there's not much separating the teams. So I don't think it's ridiculous to suggest they could be around then. Obviously, to do so, though, I think what they would have to commit to is like if I were them, I wouldn't do this whole bullshit, which all the UK teams have done the last few years of like, right, well, even though we're playing this event, not big expectations, guys, just going to try and get a bit of experience and build on it. It's like, but how do you ever build on it? You do the event, then you take a few months off and you chill out, you play random online competitions. I think if they want to do it, they have to commit and they have to be willing to fail epically. They have to go to like 6 lands within the next 5 months if they can, and just go to them. And even if they get shit on and they go to some foreign country and have to go out in 2 games and go immediately home, whatever it is, if they can commit to that, then yeah, I think it's a possibility. Okay, it's not impossible. The thing is, unfortunately, Renegades, the hype of beating them isn't quite as cool as it would have been a few months ago. It feels like that's died off a little bit. Like they themselves have been a little bit underwhelming. So yeah, it was good, but there's still a long way to go, I think. I mean, team in any way.
There were some qualifying, things to talk about there as well. Like they had just flown out there Thursday, I think. So Australia's a fucking hell of a haul. You know, it's not like coming from, even America, right? Like it's a fucking beast of a journey. And the draft was absolutely fucking terrible. To end up playing EZSkins on Dust 2.
By the way, that doesn't even make sense. Like here's the thing that might shock people who don't know this. Renegades isn't some like famed Dust 2 team either. It's not even like they were like an envious type team. Like, well, we're the best on Dust 2, so who cares if you're good? We're going to play you on it. They're like Cash, Train, Inferno, Cobblestone. Yep. They're not even a Dust 2 team, so I don't know what they were thinking. And I made this comment on the analyst desk that I'd even heard Sponge talk to Henry G and go, what maps are you guys good on? Then he told them, and then they went and let him play one. I wonder if that was them really thinking, like, it doesn't matter what we play. It's just one of those scenarios where you don't get it, It's just unnecessary because you saw from the way EZSkins was, on most of the other maps, they had a lot of issues in terms of simple things that the teams who play the maps regularly know. So if I were them, I'd have been even trying to go to some of the weird custom maps. I think you would have given EZSkins no chance then.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, look, it just seems to me like it's an absolute brain fart. Like, Sponge is usually a lot better than that in terms of his drafting, in terms of his homework. I can only attribute it to the fact they were tired, or maybe a sort of little momentary flash of arrogance, almost an overconfidence. But it was.
You know what? I've just realised, Richard. Maybe they knew that. Listen, we're the favourites in this match. Let's win some EZSkins. Listen, the name's telling us what to do here. So, listen, we're not going to win the tournament anyway. Who cares? Just let's collect a little bit of. We play TSM anyway, so let's just pick up a few of those EZSkins. But let's let this Henry G fella sort of take all the flack, as like everyone will think like his team did well or something, and everyone will be looking at the gambling over there. They won't see the gambling over it. It's the misdirection, Richard. That's what the trick is always about, right? You don't look at the guy's right hand where he pulls a pigeon out of his ass because he's rubbing his left fingers. Pay me,
Yeah, mate, no, you're right. It's very much like the Prestige in a lot of ways. But no, I don't know what happened there. I think it was optimal for EZSkins to win that game. It was a winnable game potentially to begin with. But the fact that they ended up on Dust 2 really made it what it was. It was still close. I just don't think Renegade should ever have been playing Dust 2. Now, what that means in terms of EZSkins, I don't know. How much we can attribute that win to skill, but it's a promising start, and I hopefully it's something they can build upon. Now, I'll bring you back to the potential UK government interference of gambling sponsorships. As a UK resident, do you have any thoughts about this, Duncan?
I think it's fucked up. Like, listen, I'm totally in favor of stuff like put restrictions in place where, in theory, a kid can't do it. At the end of the day, they're always going to be able to, in as much as it's over a computer. And if the parent really is stupid enough to let them get their credit card, I guess it's possible to do these things. But that's about all a government can be expected to do. I hate it in general when governments go beyond their remit of, like, policing basic stuff and start actually trying to, like, fuck with what people's behavior is and what they're allowed to do in terms of personal freedoms. Obviously, there's nothing morally wrong with gambling. You might think it's a bit gauche or a bit of a waste of money, you're an idiot, but it's just something to do with your time. So I don't see it. Listen, I wouldn't care if skin gambling was real gambling. You actually put £1,000 on there. If you want to do that, go ahead, mate. Have at it. You know. So yeah. I don't think the government should really be that involved in general. As usual, the government's more involved with bullshit like that, like fucking virtual skin gambling, than a bunch of like real problems that everyone in society would agree upon.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I mean, I talked about this with a few people. I think Scoots being one of them, but you know, I thought it was always abundantly clear that what was going to happen was there would be some like upcoming politician or you know, like the one politician who has like played a game ever, like, you know, that guy, and he would see this and he would use it as a platform for some political posturing, the evil of you know, the skins gambling, the evil of how it's corrupting the youth, and they'll use that as a political platform against some easy hits from people that don't really understand what's going on. So it was always going to be scrutinized and looked at. I just think it's a shame. It would be a massive shame now if we were, you know, basically causing revenue streams to be shut down for teams. Like, these organizations, especially the tier 2 organizations and tier 3 organizations, they have to take what revenue's on the table. They can't be like the tier 1 organizations and pick and choose their sponsors. So I think they're in a very difficult position.
Yeah, it just sucks in general, because think about it. Yeah, CSGO is getting massive now, but even a year and a half ago, there wasn't enough good sponsors for all the teams you could maybe have. So it's finally getting to the point where, I mean, we've basically an entirely new sector of sponsorships emerged out of nowhere that no one saw coming. And now the fucking government's coming in like that. Shut it down. Listen, there'll be no raves in this country, son. The Warehouse Act's taking it all down. Free love is over. It's like, yeah, right, the man.
It's quite interesting, actually. This is just an aside. I got invited to a event in London called the Battle of the Ideas, where I'm going to be on a panel and we're going to be talking about whether gaming does corrupt the youth. I'm going to be a speaker there, basically, obviously on the side of no. So I'm kind of looking forward to it.
I thought it would be wicked if you'd have just been like, yes, they're actually all just corrupt fucking crap. Look at, then you start bringing up examples like, see this man? He was once it'd just be like that. Richard, I'm not going to break any, like, I'm not going to bust anything. Didn't you once say a hilarious joke? Like you said someone should take a picture of Freiburg in 2015 and put something like CSGO, not even once or something.
I would never say that about my friend Adam, dude. Never.
Maybe I thought of someone else there, Richard.
Must have been, mate. Must have been. But anyway, the point being that you know, I'm going to go and argue that it isn't a corrupting influence, and I do think actually a lot is being overstated on how damaging gambling is. I agree with you. I think we need regulations in place. I don't think you should have unregulated gambling. I probably think yes, maybe it should be age restricted. But again, I do think we've got a lot of pushback from the Americans because they have a very different outlook to gambling to maybe Europeans and certainly British people. So I hope it doesn't impact too much on Henry's team. It'd be a real shame. It'd be a massive blow for UK esports just as they get going and have a steady income stream and have a sponsor. All of a sudden to have that pulled away, and now you're having to partner up with whoever. And you would obviously lose that title sponsorship. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's a terrible name for a team, EZSkins.com. But, you know, you take what you can.
How fucking feckless is the UK government? Of all the governments that should be doing this, it obviously should be some government like America where it's not even allowed to gamble normally. In the UK, like in my small town I live in, you can go on every road and there's like 3 gambling shops that all the old gadgets are going in with all their wages and blowing. But you're not allowed to bet virtual skins. What even is this?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, like, fuck it. Like, obviously, you know Middlesbrough. You know, in that fucking Riley's pool hall on Linthorpe Road. there's a fucking there's a jackpot machine in there, which is like £2,500 jackpot. You're getting 50p's, and you'll just see some fucking arsehole degenerate. Yeah, just not even looking at what the reels like, just praying for that big winner. Like, go help that guy. We're all right compared to that. We're all right, I think. So anyway, the other shock, of course, was, get ready for it, Duncan, Gamers 2, formerly Kingwin, their poor performance at this event.
Why? Why? Fox, why? You were supposed to be the chosen one, Fox. You were supposed to bring balance to the force. Now, to be fair, it did happen at like 3 a.m. or whatever, but even so, there was a little bit of Schadenfreude there, Rich, right? When you saw like, Copenhagen, who even are they? Just like, yeah, no one apart from Manders knows apparently, so, but they beat Kingwin, so.
Well, look,
apparently they beat him so bad that Scream was literally like, Fox, I'm never playing with you again, mate. In fact, I'm going back to that old French team I was in. Like, fuck you, mate. Just fuck you.
It's
like, I dropped the Glock for you. He's like, I've had enough Glocks, if anything. I'm out. I need real guns.
Right, let me just bring up.
Bring it back.
Let me just bring up the stats for their 2 games. I've just got them here on my laptop, and let's have a look. So I've got all the games here, actually. So let's have a look.
By the way, without even looking, because I don't ever read Twitch chat, I don't even keep the stream up. You just know the chat is already, like, they always appear, Richard. It's like Candyman. You say the name, and they appear. They'll be all the people. The Twitch chat, like, Fox number 1,
it's happening right now. You know, for a fact. Like, there's obviously like some private Facebook group where it's like the
Fox like emergency action group. They just like hear a little alarm, like, they all just run to their computers and start logging on. Yeah,
Duncan is criticising the greatest Portuguese export since Pessoa, the great writer. Quick, we must deploy. We must deploy to protect his good name. So they're going to be here at any moment right now. So, but let's just have a look at the stats. I got obviously the first game they played against SK, which was a narrow win, as we remember, 16-13. They were pretty poor, as a whole over that. It was really kind of Dennis and Scream were kind of standing out, and we did talk a little bit about how the patch might make, this new update would make a difference to Scream's game. I guess first question is, did you see anything about Scream that made you think the old Scream was going to be back anytime soon?
The problem is, I mean, people always cite this, but I do think there's some truth to it. As a player, he never really fully recovered when they nerfed the AD, where you could dodge left and right and kind of like fire as you were doing it and spray while you were kind of half moving. He was like so good at that. He was one of the absolute best. Now, unfortunately, he never quite adapted to the other style afterwards. He was always still a good player because, listen, the guy has so much natural talent. He's never going to be a bad player. At the very worst, he'll be like an above-average pro. But because he used to be like really one of the world's talents, like he used to be a top 10 player in the world, where we thought, wow, this guy can lead a team to being the top stats in the world. I don't think he ever quite recovered from that. And since then, it's been the case that then you add in stuff like, we'll take away more of his good teammates and put him on worse teams. Yeah, everything's going to progressively get a bit worse. I do think in Kingwin recently, he's been in pretty decently. He's been one of the better players in the team, certainly. Hasn't quite been a superstar, and obviously you'd hope he would among those names to kind of hint that he could join a better team. But as we're probably going to talk about later, he obviously has now gotten the shot, so maybe this is when we find out if he ever can be again. It's
a little bit strange, because I thought, actually, okay, while he was very competent and looked good in the games against the sort of lesser teams, the games where realistically they should have won, I thought against TSM, he looked woefully absent in a lot of situations, and clearly I felt TSM had the better aimers. I think the duels he was going for.
The problem is, basically, that's one of the things that makes him underwhelming, is that he is, unfortunately, people won't like this. Through a lot of his career where he's been underwhelming, it's been where he is the guy who in the online game against the team who's like a rank below you, he'd just style on him and get the 25 kills, and you'd be like, Jesus Christ, what amazing play, and have all the highlight clips. But then it's true, when he went in the big game against the big team, he'd just be okay sometimes, which isn't enough from a player like that when you're putting so much into him, And unfortunately, if you think of a lot of other great players, like, listen, remember when Kenny S was kicked out of Very Games and he had to go and play for, like, the same scenario, like the third best French team, not even the second best. That guy got it together where he was just like, okay, I have to hard carry now. That's my job then. I hard carry. And he would have whole maps where he took over even against a really good team. Unfortunately, Scream hasn't really managed to do that. So in that sense, I mean, he's kind of handicapped himself from being in everyone's like contentions to be put in extra teams. I mean, think about the Simple example we've brought up many times.
Yeah.
We all know that apparently Simple's like stealing fucking knives from people left, right, and center, telling teammates they're all dog shit and should get out the fucking team, and yet people are falling over themselves to find ways to get him into good teams because his talent's so good. If Scream had done that, I think his career would have, as much as he's accomplished already, would have been a lot better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Just getting to the sort of moment of truth in all of this, the Copenhagen Wolves game, which of course they lost. It was really weird. Like I thought overall, I thought Dennis was kind of like one of the standout players in this lineup, which at this tournament. But of course, this is the moment that everyone's waiting for. Fox was the top fragger for Gamers 2 against Copenhagen Wolves, obviously, which the game they still lost 16-11 at about 2 a.m. or whatever it was. Now, a lot of people are like, hey, you've got to give Fox credit now. I mean, he hasn't done anything else in the team, and he has been demonstrably the weakest link. And he did top frag there, but I always think that's indicative of the problems. When the obvious weakest link in the team is the guy that's top fragging, that's not that he stepped up and everything's working. That's everyone else has stepped down and things are falling apart.
I mean, to give you an example, if there was a Cloud9 game where I told you that the top fragger was Sean Gares, you wouldn't be like, whoopee, Sean Gares is also really good. You'd be like, oh my God, what happened to Shroud? What happened to Skadoodle? And you'd probably be able to guess, odds are, if it was against a good team, they probably lost the game and things went to shit. And like, a similar thing happened to, I think it was Pronax in the game. I think Pronax was fragging super hard in that train game that Cloud9 beat Fnatic on at Face It in the semi-final.
Yep.
Well, that's exactly it. If Pronax has to drop 30 plus and they lose, you know that everything else in the team went really badly. So yeah, listen, you can't obviously Fox did well in that game. He's never been a terrible pro, by the way. He never was at like Hunden status. He's just an okay pro. The problem is he's on a team that is hinting at promise of potentially being more. And if he's in any way limiting that, then it's a valid criticism to say, should he be replaced or is there someone else he can get? So yeah, unfortunately, I'm in agreement with you that it's kind of indicative of the problem when he's the one who's top fragging.
Now, I guess we can talk about Copenhagen Wolves a little bit at this juncture. I mean, because we'll have plenty of time to talk about Gamers 2 based on some reports that surfaced a little earlier today. But Copenhagen Wolves were the surprise team. They were the team that nobody really thought they'd be involved in day 2. They're a mix, primarily Norwegian. Obviously, they got Twist in there as well. What did you make of them overall? I mean, I thought Twist started out lackluster. I thought he really grew into the tournament. I thought he was great in the G2 game. And I think he had a real competent performance overall, actually.
The thing with Twist is, I mean, I obviously made fun of Anders for saying, Anders didn't just say he could play at an elite level, he said he could play at a super elite level. It's like, all right, mate, yeah. So it's like Olaf Meister, Device, Twist is on top. Like, obviously that's ridiculous. And Anders was adding in, he's getting a little bit too much of his own hype pipelined into himself there, and he's getting a bit drunk off the taste of his own hype farts. But let's be real. The thing is, Twist, every now and then, he does show these games, even to this day, where he'll have like a game where he could be a NIP player. He could be in like Fnatic or something, you know. He can do that for a map. The problem is there's very few players who can do it to that level, but who'll also then, like in 2 maps later, have a drop-off where they're like the worst player on the team or the second worst player on the team and they didn't have any impact. And you will really see that. I mean, we saw that actually at this, I think it was at this qualifier that's going on right now. He had a game where he had like 3 kills or something against Flipside. It was like, you can't conceive of how a player can be so good on one map and so bad on another. And I have to, as an outsider who doesn't know him personally, I have to figure some of this ties into the other context we always bring up about him. The idea that he's had chances to be in better teams. He was in a good team in the past in LGB. And he's never quite managed to like sort of, when the shuffles happen, he never quite manages to be the name who ends up on the better team. And part of that, it seems to me, is that something about his motivation lacks.
Yeah.
Like, he's not the guy who's going hell for leather to be the best player. And so when you aren't putting in the motivation and you don't have the drive to do it, you're going to be inconsistent like this. Because when the games where it's not going for you, like, you have to be a really dedicated player to be really mentally strong. That tends to be the trend in my experience at least.
Yeah, I think, you know, I liked the look of the team sort of overall as well. But it did seem that they'd basically given him a free role, and it was like almost like an over-reliance on Twist in general. And would he be able to pull something amazing out of the bag? And Rubinho was kind of good defensive AWPer, but he wasn't very good aggressively. I think there's promise in the lineup in the sense that I think they can improve, but I think they've got some problems they need to address. I think they definitely need to pick up some sort of tactical foundation rather than just relying on Twist going ham, like just pushing off a spawn and doing.
I mean, to use the same logic you used there to show how it applies, the same principle. That's the problem. I remember on the DreamHack overlay where they showed us the Copenhagen Wolves stuff, and it said the stats actually said the best player statistically is Rubinho.
Yeah.
Now the reason why is because he's a consistent player. He's a player who plays within his own limits, knows what he can do, just takes the shots he can, puts himself in good positions for the team. Now, if he's the best player, you already know there's some problem there because we all know skill-wise. It should be Twist. In that lineup, he should be far and away the best player. Yeah, there's other players who have aim in the team, but he's the one with the pedigree, with the history, and at one point in time was poised to be a really good player. So if he isn't, that's saying something about Twist himself there. The fact that in his own team, someone's kind of like outperforming him match to match.
Yeah. I mean, is there any chance of these guys again? Like, where do you see them placed? I know. Let's say they keep the same lineup. And they play, the next sort of 3 or 4 events. How high, realistically, do you think this lineup can get?
Yeah, the big problem is what you touched on there. It's like usually when you've got a lineup that isn't made up of so many good players or doesn't have like the best pieces, you need a really good in-game leader who can kind of like work more out of those pieces or find some synergy between them. Like I put these 2 guys on this spot that makes them better than they should be just in isolation. Since they don't seem to have that, it's hard to see them do much more than having the odd upset map win like this. And remember, it was best of 1. So I would probably say, even if they stick together, even if things go well, I mean, you're probably looking like I think probably the best is like 15th to 20th in the world. I doubt they're going to get much higher, personally. So yeah, that's a concern in that sense. Like I don't think they're going to be very relevant going forward, especially not in tournaments that have like best of 3 series, because again, one great Twist map in a best of 3, a best of 1 can get you through. But yeah. For him to have 2 out of 3 against a team that are ranked high is going to be hard.
Okay, so let's jump into Game 2. I thought the Game 2 games really sort of lived up, to the hype, actually. There was some real good matches there. The Copenhagen Wolves one, obviously, was a little bit... a little bit stompy. I think that was always going to happen, but they did have some moments. But what was interesting, of course, was the TSM semi-final. TSM looked really good in this tournament. I mean, obviously we all know how the final ended now, but up until that point where they came up against EnVyUs and in particular Kenny S, TSM were looking really, really good. So just a few thoughts about the sort of TSM semi-final then.
Yeah, the problem with the TSM Dignitas semi was the first map was so easy, and it was the one map that Dignitas should have had the best chance on.
Yeah.
Like going into the second map, where we don't even know much about Dignitas. Meanwhile, TSM have proven their worth on the map. It's becoming a strong map for them, like sort of a pocket pick. I think TSM themselves were kind of fucking around a little bit. Like they knew they had this in the bag, and they were kind of like, listen, it did almost go to OT, but it's more like TSM had the lead and they just let their foot off the gas and they were like, well, who cares? We're going to win no matter what. And so, if anything, that's kind of like how TSM was until the final. No one really could test them in that result. And there's probably a part of them knew, like, hey, the real test happens when we play EnVyUs. Like, just, I'm not saying like reserve energy, but like we're not going to blow ourselves out completely at this point. Yeah. And so, it was a little bit promising for Dignitas that at least they made Overpass not a good map for them. They made it competitive, but I don't think they were ever going to win the series, even if it went to a third map, because it was Train.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I thought Dignitas... I mean, there's a team we should probably talk about a little bit, actually. Team Dignitas. It was a real sort of strange kind of up and down series of performances for them. They still seem to have problems closing out games. And in fact, this is what seemed to happen quite consistently throughout. Like, if they started well and got a lead, they'd struggle to close out the game for whatever reason. If they kind of went behind and were battling back, they could make it competitive, as evidenced by the Overpass game against TSM. So I don't really know what to make of them in that particular lineup at the moment. I mean, I know they've obviously just brought in Schneider, which is a big swap, and Nico's out, and I guess maybe it ties into what you were talking about. They still seem to think they need a designated AWPer in that lineup.
Yeah, that's actually the biggest problem. That's what I didn't foresee being the issue, because I thought they would think to themselves, like, because the thing is, MSL as a leader seems like what I referred to before, someone who can take players who just individually aren't going to match up against fucking Cage and B, but figure out a way to use them in the team where they can have a chance to. They can contribute, they can get into good spots. So in general, he's done a really good job with that Dignitas lineup. But then this notion that they have to like crowbar AWPing into the team. I don't get it. Because here's the thing. If they're going to keep the current lineup, I don't think they should be AWPing at all. It just doesn't make sense at the moment. There's no one who can do it. If they're going to make a change and they have to have an AWPer, the obvious change to me would be maybe get rid of Kirby and get just an AWPer there. Now, it doesn't have to be a star AWPer. It could just be a defensive, put him in a spot AWPer on CT sides or something. That's fine. Maybe you can do that. Because that's the only change I can see being obvious. Because at the moment, what I saw at this tournament was, like, Schneider was going well, AZ had good games, but all you did is take Imp, one of your best players, and kind of kneecap him a bit and make him less effective by forcing him into this AWPing role. So I don't think it's as effective. It's not going to work as well. So sadly, in the end, it ended up being kind of a wash. Like, the negatives matched up with the positives of adding Schneider. It didn't really add that much. Like, they weren't that much better than I thought they could be when they lose Nico and add in Schneider. So at the moment, the summer hasn't quite been figured out in the formula there.
So what about, I mean, you say Kiebi. So why him? Why is it going to be him to go?
Here's the thing, Rich. Because I don't watch online CS.
Right.
And in terms of even group stage games, I only watch if it's an interesting game, like against another good team. Like if some team's playing a terrible team in the beginning rounds of a tournament, I usually don't watch that game. I'd rather watch a better game twice and get more insight, you know. So as a result, my view on someone like Kirby is very different to a lot of other people. I've almost never seen this guy have good games because I only watch him against top 10 teams in general. So most of the time he's having average fragging games, or he's playing super passive, or he's saving his guns, or he's just not having an impact at all. And yet the hype around him, it's almost on the level of Anders with all that Pouf shit. Like, oh, no, listen, if he just gets his head to... I mean, Anders was... let me think, who was he contrasted him with?
Yeah.
Okay, Anders contrasted him with Device by saying, you know, Device had to get over the choking. Let's be real here, Anders, my boy. Device, the choker, was still having games against everyone else in tournaments until the semis of tournaments, where he would just drop 30 on them and fucking style them completely, to the extent that that's why the choking was so scrutinized. Because we were like, this is one of the best players of all time, and yet he can never get it done at that point in time. Kirby, he's doing that stuff online and against tier 2 teams. Like, it's just, you got to be real on this stuff, you know. So, like, I realized he was just trying to use an analogy there, use a reference point.
Yeah.
But I think even that was a bit, they were conflating the two, should not be done there. So, yeah, for me, I think Kirby's just a bit overrated. Unfortunately, there's a few players like that in the Danish scene where they show a little bit of flash at some point, and people are like, oh, maybe, you know, they're young if they develop. I think it was similar with Tensky, the guy who used to be in Copenhagen Wolves. But I haven't seen nearly enough to make up for the fact that they clearly have some issues in terms of playing in big games or nerves. For me, you've got to have a lot of upside to overcome, unfortunately, what at the moment are kind of almost personality or personal issues that are impacting your game. Because they're the hardest for an in-game leader to work with. You can't get a guy on a fucking couch and start going through his childhood to figure out why he's not confident in himself. You know, you're supposed to just be putting him in spots on the map to frag people. It's his job to frag at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sympathetic because obviously I know he's still a young guy, but I definitely agree with you in the sense that I can't remember the last big game where we weren't talking about Kiebi being missing or being a problem. And it seems to me that other teams realize this. Tactically, I've seen teams deliberately target where he plays on a map and kind of go there and bully him and force the issue. And that's just not a good spot to be in for a team. Now, I mean, Team Dignitas obviously have had all sorts of issues in terms of underperformance. Like, there was no doubt that Nico was the weakest link in that particular roster. He had to go. They replaced him with Schneider. Very good pickup. But now, in the absence of Nico, it's Kiebi that's going to get scrutinized. It's Kiebi that's going to get hauled over the coals every time they lose. And it just makes me wonder if it's better to rip that Band-Aid off now and maybe do something constructive about it.
It's like I said to you, there's two ways you could obviously go with this. One is, remember that ridiculous rumor which we referenced, which is that Zipnex or Zipex, whatever you want to call him, is going to get moved from TSM. Well, obviously, because he went so fucking ham the last two tournaments, I mean, it's very likely that's going to happen now. But even if it had happened, I even said, if I'm fucking Dignitas, I'm just sat back, like, licking my lips, like, go, fucking kick him, mate. Take AZ if you want, mate, because, listen, AZ is a very good player, but we can get people who can just put frags up. Getting a really good support player like Zip, that's fucking hard. So that actually, I think, in some ways, make Dignitas better in some ways. With that said, there's another route you can go, which I don't think they've thought of themselves, but it presents itself naturally, which is, okay, if we've got Schneider in the team, he's not speaking full Danish, he doesn't have really good Danish. That means we can already have two players who don't speak really good Danish, potentially. So, again, you don't have to limit yourself just to these. Hey, why not get Twist into a team like that? Why not get someone else into a team like that? You know, there's players out there who could probably play that role and do a serviceable job and maybe that can improve you in that sense. Maybe you don't have to think in the paradigm of it has to be a Danish player.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think at the point, once you start mixing a roster, like that's it, right? English is becoming the sort of go-to communication language. So fuck it. You may as well, in for a penny, in for a pound. If at that point the extra fraction of a second you're losing, not speaking in your native tongue, well, you may as well pad out the team with better talent then. So what you lose in communication, you gain in, you know, raw skill. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go ultimately for Team Dignitas, but you know, if they can keep hold of AZ, obviously he's highly caught. I mean, that could be the next problem. I mean, that would be the disaster, right? If they lost fucking AZ and then we still had Kiebi and had to think about replacing AZ. I mean, you know, things could get out of hand really, really quickly for that team. So, but just to get back to the original talking point, I think Pimp needs to put the AWP down. I think you lose too much of what he brings to the table as a rifler, frankly, and his AWPing was very hit and miss this tournament.
Yeah, it was a problem, you could tell.
So let's talk about. I won't even bother with the EnVyUs and Copenhagen Wolves semi-final. Let's get straight into the final. What a fucking final it was, by the way. One of the best finals I've seen in the tournament for a long, long time. Delivered on every fucking level. Crowd were loving it. It was a great atmosphere. It really got everyone pumped up. Everybody. I mean, like there was people who were maybe at their first CSGO tournament that I was talking to. I mean, they're going to be super disappointed, I think, when they go to like other tournaments, because the level of play between TSM and EnVyUs was so high. There were so many ridiculous moments in it. Carrigan, especially for TSM, had so many good moments. You had the happy deagle. It was fucking ridiculous. It was like a highlight reel. It was like an all-star game, basically, where it was almost as if they were letting each other do these ridiculous things over and over and over again just to entertain the crowd. But of course, it had the advantage that it wasn't theatre. It was literally just super high-skilled Counterstrike.
Yeah, well, what's funny is the timing of this is great, Richard, because I'd made a point in a video I did the week before about like when brilliant moments happen in esports. I made the point that there's this weird phenomenon, especially in CS particularly, where you obviously can have like these 5 kills in a row, and that's like the limit of what you can have. That for some reason it's almost like once you get on the rail of that starting to happen and something amazing starts happening, you hit the first shot, the second shot's even crazier, the third shot you just think, well, anything's possible, fuck it. You fire a no-scope or something, you hit that. It's like once you've hit those, you could pause the video and somehow you just know he's going to like fucking no-scope the fourth guy, then spin around 180 deagle the guy in the head, and you just know what's going to happen. And it's almost like the opponent knows it's going to happen, doesn't want it to happen, but can't seem to stop it from happening, and everyone is just watching like, we know what the fuck's happening, do it. And then they do it, and it happens, and we're all like, how is that even possible? It does look scripted. You could almost believe it was fake, except I don't know how you could even make that was fake unless you had like aim bots or something, because it's unreal. So on that particular round, the great thing was, I remember, I think it was Lurpus said something along the lines of like, oh, I'm sure, you know, he must have done that in practice or something if he did that before. And Happy even said like, I actually haven't. I've never done that before ever. So that just goes in line with what I'm saying though. It's so ridiculous. The idea is, that's like when you lock into that zone that sportsmen talk about, where the idea is you just know you're going to hit the next shot. Like you can't miss. And so, yeah, it was clearly a magical moment when that happened, and it just defies almost explanation, you know, like you can watch it and break it down, it still doesn't make sense to me. Like, for example, I still don't know why the 5th guy comes through the smoke there after that. Like, again, I told you I'm an arsehole, mate. When that used to happen to me, I used to literally say to like my team, because I was the in-game leader, Rich, so I was all the last in the site. When they ran into the B site through the B tunnels and all got fragged, I'd literally run off, go back through spawn, go to long and die at long in a duel. And they'd be like, what the fuck, man? We had B, it was almost open. I was like, listen, I'm not being in a frag movie. When they have that frag movie clip and you're all popping up the right-hand corner of the screen, I'm not even featured in that clip, mate. No one's doing a hard cut to me down at long A doors, so yeah, exactly. Yeah, I ruin frag movie clips, mate.
Yeah, it's true. And like I was, you know, when you watch that back, it's almost like the ridiculous needless flamboyance of it, like just flicking the gun between each kill. If somebody showed me that online and I didn't know it was a pro player, like, well, that's just grade A bullshit. That's just fucking grade A bullshit.
I like it's hitting them through smoke.
Yeah, that's like just some German level shit right there. Like you just wouldn't believe it was real, but it was real, and it was the in-game leader of one of the best teams in the world doing it at LAN. I mean, it's fucking really incredible. But let's talk about the matchup in general. I mean, TSM, they obviously came out of you know, a bit of a weird topsy-turvy time for them. You know, they lost to EnVyUs at the major to miss out and going into the final. Obviously, then they had Dubai. They made it to the final there, and then they got fucking, you know, beaten in ridiculous circumstances by Virtus.pro. And what made that worse was there was almost like a comeback on the cards, like a fairy tale comeback, and then Virtus.pro took the last 2 rounds to kind of ruin it. So again, another great final involving TSM. They're rapidly becoming one of the best teams you can watch, actually, in terms of how they match up against almost every other team in the game. But EnVyUs is fucking kryptonite to them right now. They just cannot beat them. And I thought the final would actually be a lot more competitive, but EnVyUs just seemed to have their number.
No, I mean, the thing is, it's hard to sort of say that TSM's done anything wrong in these last 2 tournaments. Like, they've played a performance where, against many other opponents, they'd have 2 titles in their back pocket now. On top of that, they're only getting beaten by really high level, like peak, best the other team has ever played type performances against them. So again, you got to tip your hat in that scenario. And in both these finals, in this one particularly, none of these maps were decided. These maps were really competitive going into sort of like the 24th, 25th rounds. Like, what I thought was really great about this game, actually, was it's like every single time, it was like a heavyweight slugfest boxing match, you know, with 2 guys who aren't afraid to just stand in the pocket and just blow after blow after blow. And the idea is both of them can take it, you know, both of them can take a shot on the chin, can take a body blow, but they're the sort of fighter where they'll take one to be able to get the room to give one back, you know. And so you just saw them go backwards and forwards. One guy would win 4 rounds, the other one would win a ridiculous 1v2, then they'd get 3 or 4 rounds. And part of you, at one point in the game, was always thinking, oh, who's going to get it at the end, though? But then every time it was EnVyUs. It's the fact that they repeatedly did it. So, yeah, you have to say overall, EnVyUs outplayed them. They managed a way to adapt and shut things down, especially some of the T sides of TSM. But at the same time, I can't really say TSM played badly. They played great. I mean, I had this stat that I tweeted, Rich, where I looked it up. You know what I said on the last show about how TSM lost that best-of-5 final to Virtus.pro, and yet when you looked at the stats, Device had an average of 20 kills for the 5 maps. He did it again in this final. So he's had 7 finals maps where he's averaging 20 kills for every map. I mean, like, what more are you supposed to do at this point in time? These are your bad games, in theory. Yeah. I mean, that just shows the level that EnVyUs played at to beat them. I mean, I've never seen them play that well. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find the stat now because I brought this up on the broadcast. The amount of times TSM had the first frag. Someone looked it up, actually.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to find him now.
I think he said it was something like 24 rounds. TSM got the first kill and lost 10 of those rounds.
Yeah, and then whereas
for EnVyUs, it was only lost like 4 of them or something.
Yeah, they'd only lost 4. Yeah, that was right. But I'll try and get the exact stat while we're talking. But I mean, that was a real feature of why TSM weren't able to do better in this game. I mean, remember the round that turned it on its head on Dust 2? So they're facing an EnVyUs eco. Carrigan looks down mid at the doors. Thanks to the new hitboxes, someone jumps across. Boom, he bangs him the fuck out through the door. It's now a 5-on-4 against an eco. TSM say, fuck it, we're going to get the jump on them, we'll go B. And they get fucking absolutely wrecked and chopped down to dog meat. Now, that shouldn't be happening. Now, my question to you is, when a situation like that occurs, is that TSM fucking up? Or is that EnVyUs who just godlike with these fucking pistols and force buys?
Like, I won't give the cliched answer and say it's a bit of both, because I think it's like a little bit TSM, but I think the reason it's happening at TSM, here's the key thing. Normally, TSM's really clutch at closing these rounds out, or if they get the advantage early, they just blow you out and it doesn't even have to be a close round. So against other teams, I think they have more control. But actually, I think it fucks with TSM how much EnVyUs has been beating them, how EnVyUs' style is countering theirs. So it's making them make more weird moves, like moves that don't make sense, because they're having to second guess themselves. Because what they're naturally doing, it's not working. It's just not working quite enough, which is the most frustrating, you know. So to mix it up, they're doing weird shit. On top of that, you could do the weird shit and it would work against most teams because of how good TSM is. But EnVyUs is just otherworldly and always have been on those fucking weird half buys and these rounds where, I mean, we've said this before, the old LDLC that won a major used to win more rounds with a CZ than they did with a fucking M4A1, which doesn't make any sense, but that just shows the way they would play when they had those guns, and they still do it now. They're so dangerous in that particular scenario. It's like, I remember this great line that a legendary Quake player once said, where fans had watched a demo of his, right? And they were all commenting on this forum. Like when there was a scenario where he got the opponent, who was like a champion, down to like 20 health. And they were like, the opponent was like running through a room and he just let him go. And he thought like, right, I'll choose a different fight to take it on. And all the fans were like, oh, you idiot. I would have just run in there, like rocketed behind him, like thrown the lightning gun all over him. And he literally said like, that's because you've never played a player like that. When you play a champion level player, he's at his most dangerous at that because he's totally attuned to the idea you're going to rush him. And actually, he might even be running away in a way where he's setting it up so that when you charge in, you then go into sort of, it's like that Spartan thing, you know, you go into like the short area where he then has you pinned down and he wants the fight to get placed there. You think you're choosing the fight, he's choosing it. So I feel like that's what it's like with EnVyUs. You're so used to being able to mop up the guys who don't have the guns. It makes you play looser, and then they actually are they're more coordinated on the like the eco rounds where they have the CZs and whatever, and they'll all rush in together and really swarm a guy. And with that phenomenal aim, they can make miracles happen that no one else can do.
Yeah, but what's crazy about it is it's a trait that's gone into this lineup, this new roster. You know, you think about it, you lose Shocks, and you know you lose Smiths, right? Which you know maybe that's not such a big deal or not a big contributor to it, but we all know that Shocks' one bullet aim is fucking ridiculous. So you would imagine he would be one of the guys that would be wrecking heads with the pistols and the force buys. You bring in two new players, and it's same attitude, same results, which is what makes it so remarkable in a way that they're still able to do this.
Well, what's funny is, in a weird way, that I had never thought of this, but they might get even crazier in that respect, Rich. Because the thing is, Shocks was such a great pistoler. He actually played fundamentally correct. He used to buy a P250 a lot. And so has an Odd Eagle even, you know. Whereas actually Apex is famously one of those like Kiyoshima JW bullshit, jump around the corner and hit you in the head with 3 bullets from miles away with a CZ type player. So they might be, if Happy really wants to go crazy on this, they might be get even more ridiculous in that respect.
Just a little bit more about TSM before we get to the obvious talking point. You know, they did make a lot of changes tactically. They obviously had beating EnVyUs in mind. They didn't do their regular setups. There was lots of you know, kind of swaps where they had, you know, for example, on Inferno, it was Device and Dupree on the small site, which was a change for them. And I think usually they would play Carrigan and I think Zipnik's on there. So they did try and change things up with EnVyUs in mind, but it didn't seem that there just didn't seem to be anything they could do in those all important moments. Now, there's obviously been a lot of talk about Zipnik's, you know, and whether or not he's going to make way for another Danish talent here. I don't, you know, I know that was a real thing, and it was definitely thought about, but it seems to have died down now. Is there anybody you think could maybe improve or enhance this lineup? Do they need to go back to thinking about bringing AZ in? Will TSM try and revisit the idea of a roster change?
Yeah, it's hard to tell because the thing is, I have to think differently from how I would think. Like, I mean, I've referenced this for the last couple of shows. If it's me, I still haven't seen enough to know that you're not going to win. Because, for example, we know VP's not going to maintain that level for all the next 4 tournaments.
Yep.
We know it's unlikely even EnVyUs, as good as they are now, will be at that peak. They might have just a really good tournament, or they might have one really sick tournament and then one that's not so good, like they did in Dubai. So again, if I'm TSM, I'm like, listen, just hold the line, mate. You and Fnatic, you're probably not going to be the best team every tournament, but you're going to be good enough in general to win titles. So I think that's a reasonable approach for now, especially because obviously the major's right around the corner. So no one's going to change right now.
No.
But no, it's true. I mean, I mentioned this about Fnatic in the past. One of the reasons I could have seen Fnatic players retiring or leaving the team is purely because when certain things happen to you again and again, you get frustrated. One of the ways people deal with frustration is they think, right, just flip the game board over. Let's new pieces. Start a new game, bring in this new player and a new blood, and you have all these buzzwords they throw around. And the idea is, because they can't solve the problem, they want to just get rid of it and have a different problem to solve. And they think, right, well, maybe that one I'll be better equipped to solve. So in the future, if this keeps happening, especially if it becomes a kryptonite scenario, and more importantly, here's the key thing, if EnVyUs can become the best team, that's when TSM probably would make a change, because teams hate that. Like, one of the things I think saved Fnatic is what I actually referenced when TSM got on top, which is that TSM have shown they can beat Fnatic, but they haven't yet shown they're going to be the best team. Because if they've been the best team and they were waiting in every final Fnatic, then beating them, I think you would have seen Fnatic would be dead already. They would have changed players. The very fact that TSM then had some events where they finished last or they only made the semis, then Fnatic was like, oh, actually, it's not just about TSM. Yeah, we haven't figured that out, but that's not the entire game. And you've seen Fnatic in the meantime have been very successful despite that. So I think that's what TSM should be waiting on, is that like what is really going to happen to EnVyUs to know how dangerous this problem is, because at the moment it's a problem. It's becoming a TSM Fnatic style problem.
And I will add as well that every time I've talked to Dupree about it, he's super philosophical. You know, he's just like, look, when you're at this level, everybody can beat everyone else, like, on their day. Like, there's no need to necessarily be making any changes or any panic changes. There's no need to think about it in any other terms except, you know, on that day we weren't good enough. So I think they do think about it like that. So EnVyUs.
Well, what I'll do, Rich, is I'm going to take a recording of that and just take it to Fnatic. Like, listen, Dupree even said, you guys can beat him anytime on your best day. Like, don't worry about it. He doesn't even know that you're better, that he's better than you, or that you win in that matchup. So don't even worry about it, guys. Just beat him. You know? Yeah.
So I'll talk about it. I'll talk about EnVyUs, who are obviously a team that did make their roster swap, which I think it's clearly improved the team. I don't think anyone can be in any doubt about that. They've been way more consistent. But they came out of Dubai with a big question mark over them, and that was, you know, after losing to NIP, a team that's clearly got its own fucking problems right now, and looks to be ceasing to exist as we thought it might be the case. They've managed to go forward, and they've hit. We wondered how they were going to bounce back. They bounced back, and they were brilliant in this final, and in particularly Kenny S, who hasn't really been a standout player since joining EnVyUs. Hasn't really had to be, but he was absolute fucking god mode in this final. 50 frags across 2 maps.
Yeah. I mean, he obviously hasn't hit the Titan level, just because it's probably impossible for anyone to, because that took a perfect like confluence of situations where not only was he the best player in the world, he was playing on a team where basically he'd have extra frags available every round because other people couldn't get him on his team, and he was playing the best teams in the world who all were going to make it really hard. So to get the kills was going to be even harder. So it's almost like if you wanted to see someone have the best possible performance, unfortunately you have to put him in like elo hell like Kenny S used to be in, to be able to really exhibit like the god mode performance. Meanwhile, now you move him over to this team, he's never going to be able to hit those heights, but this was close. This was like, I haven't seen anything like this basically since the major of because the major was the big tournament where you noticed he'd started to drop off. That was where like he wasn't really just like locked in every game, and ever since then he's just been like a good player, above average pro definitely, still a good AWPer, but he's never been close to he's never been doing regularly on LAN stuff like what he was doing here where he's hitting no scopes. I mean, it really summed it up where he just went for that second mid shot on Inferno, where he just ran all the way from spawn as fast as he could, got up in there, shot, and left before he'd like, it looked like before the shot even registered, you know, and really did do like the movie style, walking away from the car blowing up behind you, just like, yeah, I guess things are about to get a little hot around here. Some shot, like some lame line like that. It was almost like that, you know, that's the swagger he'd gotten back, and so that's really exciting, obviously, if you've enjoyed watching his career, because it's sad when those great players drop off and you're always wondering, will they ever get back there again? He's at least shown signs that he can.
Oh, well, I mean, look, there's no doubt. I mean, I thought it was more than signs. This was a fucking immense performance. And that's why, you know, I was making a joke. It's Titanic in a performance, because it is in a lot of ways. You know, it was back to the glory days of where he would perform brilliantly, but it was his teammates that would let him down. But here, clearly, he was able to, you know, it was a reverse of that. He was able to sort of spearhead EnVyUs, who were going up against a very good TSM, who were determined to beat them, who changed up their tactics. And for me, he was the wild card. He was the wild card factor, especially on Inferno, that enabled them to win.
Plus, I just love the whole storyline, because here's the thing, okay? You guys have to realize, I mean, listen, you saw the name of his USPS. Happy's USPS is called Thorin is Baguette. We have a love-hate relationship, okay? I love to hate him in a way. He hates to love me, you know? It's difficult, guys. It's complicated. So I always fuck with him. Like, at that period when he said he was the best player and everyone thought he was the best player, and I was like, yeah, well, that's because you actually set the team up so you're the best, mate. Like, NBK's baiting for you. Shox is like an entry fragger now who's never even done that role before. You've got Smith's just like AWPing off in some corner, sees headed people in the head. Like, you're just living the dream, mate, just picking up frags left, right, and center. And I even used to say, but let's face it, Kenny S is better than you in Titan, and you're like, that, you know, exists as a better leader. And he used to get so salty and be like, oh, it's bullshit, you know, Kenny S is only the best because they set everything up around him to make him look the best. Well, he's in your team now, mate, and he's better than you in that tournament, wasn't he? You even hit a little 5D clip in the fucking final, and after the tournament, everyone was like, yeah, but that Kenny S is fucking wicked, isn't he? In your team, at your table. Basically, you set up the table, all the servants were bringing in the silver dishes, the roast pork, sir, and then they're bringing in the whatever, gravy parts, whatever it might be, Rich. You come in and you're thinking like, right, I can't wait for this. You come in and Kenny S is sat on your little fucking throne at the head of the table, digging in, and you're like, what? Where's man? He's like, Happy, I saved a seat for you here. Here's the little drumstick 5 key for you, son. Like, then, yeah, he's taken over the house, hasn't he?
Yeah, and fucking, I hope it continues, man, because here's the thing I want to nail you down on. Going into this tournament, and indeed after Dubai, you know what I've said. I think this can be the #1 team in the world. I really believe it. I've seen it happen in Source multiple times, that when a French team gets into the fucking zone, they've got such a glorious selection of talent individually to pick from, that you can really make great teams from all of the French players. You could probably, if you take the right 5, you can make the world's best. And I think EnVyUs are doing that, and they're even the shortcomings of certain players are being worked on. I think EnVyUs can be #1. I think as Fnatic declines, and there's obviously talk there that there might be some changes. We've heard that rumor for a while now. We have no idea if that's going to be the case. As TSM sort of struggle to, come up with a way to beat EnVyUs, Virtus Pro, we know they're prone to drop off. I think the road is paved for EnVyUs to be the #1 team. You obviously have said that you don't necessarily rate them in the same way I do. Your top 10 ranking reflected that. Have you revised your opinion?
Well, here's what's funny, okay, is the week before DreamHack London, I did my AMA on the Global Offensive subreddit, and someone asked me there this question. Like, what they basically asked me to try and predict is which team will take over from Fnatic as the next dominant team. And the key thing is that it's the idea you have to be the dominant team. You can't just be the next team that wins and Fnatic drops off, or it becomes like a free-for-all and everyone's popping in and winning one event each. It's the idea you have to be the next team where for the next 6 months you'll win the most tournaments. And so I was picking amongst teams, and what I even said was the reason it's always hard for me is I've maintained a theory, a philosophy on the game, which I think's been borne out, which is that nearly always in history, the team that becomes the next dominant team is never the one that's currently here now. It's always, you have to do at least one roster change usually, and that either does something, either that player plays fantastically, or just bringing them in moves everyone else around their position and sets them in, and then usually that's when the team clicks into place. And it's not like they gradually go from 5th place to 4th to 2nd and then become they usually just kick right in when it all starts working and become #1. Now, I made the point, okay, that if I do that way, I'm obviously gonna have to pick a team and make an imaginary roster move in my mind and have it happen. So if I did so, I mentioned this last week, the one I picked was, I guess if you put Simple on Na'Vi and it all went well, it could work. But I did give elsewhere one other team a chance that didn't have to do a roster move, which is I said, I guess in EnVyUs, they do have this latent factor, which is the idea that Kenny S, as recently as 9 months ago, was the best player in the whole world. In fact, less than that, maybe 8 months ago, was the best player in the whole world. So if he can get even close to that level, that makes them, who are already a very good team, maybe that can make them a #1 team. I'm still not sold on it. The key thing is it's mainly been against TSM so far. I want to see them against VP, against Na'Vi even. I want to see them against Fnatic. Let's see. I mean, I guess they played Na'Vi once, but even then, that was a 3-game series. I want to see these games more. I want to see those matchups play out some more, which obviously we're going to get to see at Gfinity this weekend, which is going to be great because it's best of 5. So once we've seen that, then I think, hey, listen, I'll put it this way: there's the chance for them to be #1, but there's still a bit of hard yards to go before then. I'm not just going to hand them the crown.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, like you say, I think they can definitely do it. I think they've got all the components. One of the things that really impressed me was in the final, and I don't think a lot of people picked up on this because, obviously, there were so many of the talking points. But in terms of entry, Fragging Apex was actually having a tough time against TSM. I think he, again, there was a statistic that got tweeted out. He was getting caught out quite a bit. But it's like you say, he has that confidence to be the first man in. So him dying doesn't matter. It's the fact that while people are preoccupied with him, he knows there's players there who have got his back and are going to be able to capitalize. MBK, for example, and who I think is actually the bedrock, the foundations on which the team is built in a lot of ways. I think if they can keep Kenny S at that level, where he literally can go up against an elite level team and drop 50 frags in 2 maps, that's ridiculous for your designated AWPer. And I just think they've got everything. Right now, they've got everything. It's just about maintaining the form. And I know if they maintain the form and they keep the psychology right and nobody goes on tilt and does that classically French thing where they will invariably have that bad tournament, the disappointing tournament, like when it comes, if as long as nobody goes, oh, well, this is it, or whatever, like, you know, which has happened historically in every French team prior to this. If they stick together and work through it, I think they're going to be fucking immense. I think they will be the next dominant team.
It's definitely an exciting prospect.
Yeah, well, yeah, fuck yeah. I mean, they're great to watch as well, and that's what I mean. Like,
but Rich, that hype could die as soon as this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I know that, right? And obviously, I'm going to be there now, so it's going to be good. I'll get to see it firsthand. But I just think they're in such confident, supreme form right now. I wouldn't bet against them at Gfinity either, even in a Champions of Champions scenario. But we'll find out. We'll see. So. Any final thoughts about DreamHack London before we move on to the absolute clusterfuck that was the day in news?
It just shows, that event really does show how this principle I've always mentioned, and I always kind of tell event organizers when their event's going to shit. Listen, don't worry. As long as a good game happens in this tournament, everything will be forgotten. Everything will be made up for, and all we'll remember is the great game. And so, in terms of the actual talent at this tournament, listen, I know people think you have to lie if you're talent on desk. There wasn't actually that many great teams at this tournament. There was a couple of really good teams, a couple of okay teams, and a bunch that I didn't really give a fuck about. They were just okay teams making up the numbers. If you're being realistic, the only real game that should have been a barn burner was the final, and luckily that delivered. And because it was really good, and actually there haven't been that many really good finals in CS, because since we use single elim and we have no seeding in the bracket stage, odds are, because you've got two semi-finals that are usually the good teams playing and only one final, odds are you're going to get your best game actually in the semi-final. You tend to see that in history. So unfortunately, there haven't been that many great finals. This was one of the great finals. I think it's up there with a lot of the good ones I've seen. And so as a result, it ended on such a great note that I have really positive thoughts of the event. Like, I don't even think back on that 14-hour slog on the stream on day one when we were filling and think, oh, what the fuck was that all about? I just think, who cares? It got to an awesome match at the end.
Yeah, I mean, that you're absolutely right. That's a great series. You know, I made a point of watching you know, the sort of highlights and stuff from it as soon as I got back home, actually. And I was just like, you know what, that is a fucking ridiculously good game. And, you know, with lots of chatter about Counterstrike being on TV very soon, I hope that's the kind of spectacle that we can keep delivering, because that's what makes the fucking game so good. Right, let's get into news. Let's do it. Do you want to, should we cock tease? I'm going to stick the tip in, right? I'm going to stick the tip in, then pull it out. No shaft for you. So Winterfox signed Mythic. That's
genius.
That's
fucking genius.
That's a tip if ever there was one. But I know Winterfox have been fucking desperate to get into CSGO, right? Like they've
got a team for them, I think, mate.
Well, they were real desperate to get in, and obviously it's a very hard market to get into right now if you don't necessarily have spending power. Winterfox have had their own problems in other games, but obviously, famously, they are part of this GGA kind of conglomerate. You know, the agency where they did change their name quite famously, and that League of Legends team isn't in LCS currently. They were linked with the team that went on to become Gamers 2. There was talk about them being in the mix, but Gamers 2 were always the favourite to win that bidding war, but just because of the sheer spending power that they had. So I think they were kind of scrambling, all due respect to the lineup that they've picked up. So just for those that don't know, the Winterfox lineup is Pouth, our friend Pouth. It's your boy Pouth, right?
Get Anders in here.
Yeah, get Anders in. You've got Lex, Devil Walk, Anger, and of course the 1.6 veteran XP3.
Oh, it's Python, isn't it?
What?
Isn't it Python instead of Pouth?
Well, look, it's spelt like Pyth, as in Python, which is what I always thought it was.
How it's supposed to pronounce it?
Yeah, but like Scandinavians, their language is all fucked up. They got all these crazy sounds that like British people have never encountered before. So
he means a different player. He means Pouth. There's a Swedish player called Pouth.
Oh, right. So this is Pyth.
Sure he means
right. Okay, good. So he's not pronouncing that.
Yeah, I wondered about.
All right.
Okay, yeah, that's a different player.
Oh, thank fuck.
That's an even worse player, mate. That's why I was going like, come on, man. You're fucking begging belief now, aren't you?
No, right. Okay, that's good. Oh, well, that makes even more sense. I thought he was talking about this guy the entire fucking weekend.
No,
I didn't even know. Why is he talking about that other guy?
I don't even know, mate. It's Anders, and I think Anders thinks like basically for Anders, because he's the ultimate hype guy and he can sell anyone on that. I mean, he used to be telling me back in like 2013, like, oh, fucking Guardian's going to be the best AWP, and I was like, he's not. Look at Kenny S. He's a fucking god, mate. What are you talking about?
I didn't even realize. I thought the entire time he was talking about this guy in Mythic.
No, sadly not. So that guy, the other guy isn't even in the top team, mate. So here's the mad thing.
But he hasn't been for ages. He hasn't been relevant for so fucking long. What the fuck?
So Anders would always just hype these players, and I feel like when he gets to me, rather than think like, well, that's a wasted, that's a waste of time hyping for him. Instead, it's more like he thinks he's like the fucking the Pope, and I'm like the ultimate atheist, like Richard Dawkins or something, and he's like, can I not reach into the human compassion in him and make him see the transcendent numinous wonder that is the Lord? And he tries to get through to me, and I'm like, Anders, I'm not seeing it, mate. I think that fucking like Scream's overrated. Like, come on, it's not gonna happen, is it?
I can't believe that. I literally thought he was talking about this guy. It's been like one of them Swedes who are in the wilderness, because obviously he used to play for fucking Orbit and stuff.
Yeah.
And now he's far in the fucking wilderness as it gets right now, even in the team. So I was like, oh, okay. That guy did have some good performances. Obviously, we saw him at Gfinity. He looked all right. He's had some good performances in the ESL Pro League online. I was like, oh, this guy that Anders keeps bringing up, maybe Thorin's been a little bit harsh in saying this guy can't be good and is irrelevant. The other guy, where the fuck is he? What does he even do anymore? I didn't even realise.
See what I mean? Anders is a fucking mess, mate.
Yeah, that's unreal.
Listen,
that's
I don't know
unreal.
If having a kid made him like too loving and cuddly, and suddenly everyone, oh, you're all brilliant, you're great, everyone's great, come on in, you get to be elite, you're super elite, you're fucking sick, amazing player, you should be in Fnatic. I don't know if he's gone full Oprah mode on us or what, but I mean, he has become an institution like Oprah, hasn't he, Anders?
And he is a strong, independent black woman, obviously, so there is no doubt about it. But I couldn't believe that.
Actually, Anders has sort of got the sort of personality of Oprah. He's just overwhelmingly positive, he's super popular, he never puts a foot wrong, Somehow he manages to be he's a humanizing element, yet he is clearly a star who's outside of the mere mortal realm of plebs like us, Rich.
Yeah, true. Well, there we go. Like, obviously the Twitch chat are loving this, but and now we're getting into a debate about how pit apparently it's pronounced. Fuck Swedish, but I'm done with this shit. Like, right, your name is how it fucking looks.
By the way, Rich, I've actually won that debate. No one else ever got to it, but I kept thinking it through and I've got to it finally. So in League of Legends, there's the player whose name is written in English, you'd say Reckles. That's the way it's written. K-K-L-E-S.
Yeah.
So people always say, but he pronounces it reckless, even though it would never be spelled that way. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So they go, since he pronounces it that way, you should pronounce it that way. That's the correct way.
Get fucked.
Here's an interesting factor for you, Rich, that no one's thought of. So in Korea, they don't actually have the letter F, so they can't pronounce the letter F, right? They say P. So they call Faker, the best player in the world, Paker.
There's no way that's true.
They do.
There's no way that's true.
My favourite player is called Flame, and they call him Plame.
Right. Have you ever thought that maybe the Koreans you were hanging around with were trolling
this
you,
is
dude?
actually on OGN streams, mate. They said. So here's the great thing. Right. So I want everyone in the West to start calling Faker, Paker, start doing it. And if you don't do it, you're a fucking hypocrite because of the reckless thing. Reckles. There we go. It's over. It's over, guys.
It's over.
English is the language. That's what we're talking. Give up all your other shit.
Fucking Paker. Mate, you can't drop something like that on me in the middle of a show. That's like shook everything I know about fucking esports to my foundations. Like, fucking Paker.
Good, isn't it?
That's unreal, that, mate. That's unreal. So anyway, well, fuck Fife or whatever we're calling this cunt now. Like, fuck him. Anyway, back to Mythic, right? Palf. I can't even believe that guy. Why is Anders even talking about him? That's ridiculous. Anyway, Winterfox. Like, seriously, I'm really stunned that he would be bringing him up as the talent. Like, it's just beyond a joke. Anyway, right. I'm back in the room. Winterfox, their team. Do you think this is a good pickup for Winterfox? They're going to be in the Group C. The DreamHack Open at Stockholm, trying to qualify, which obviously doubles up as the major qualifier. So
here's the problem, Rich. There's no chance they're getting out of that group. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, it's by far the hardest group. And when you consider they're the worst team in the group, I mean, they have to be, there's like 3 teams who in theory can all beat them. So I think TL and Mouse are the obvious ones getting out of that group, and I think even Renegades could beat them. So I think they have no chance, unfortunately. Maybe they would have in a different group. The sad thing about that lineup is, I remember, I mean, it's obviously been through multiple incarnations now, and now it's got XP3 in it. I've seen a bunch of the lineups, and I thought, I mean, that could work. And online, they were doing all right in ESEA, ESL for a while. So I thought maybe, but I mean, we all know the joke. They've never done anything on LAN. They even got beaten by that fucking Tempo Storm team at CEVO. Yeah. So sadly, I have no faith in this team until they show me something. I haven't seen anything yet, guys.
I'm really upset because back when they had, it was NAF Fly, right? I thought they could have been one of the surprise packages, like, you know, like one of the teams that developed. Like, I got a lot of time for Anger. I thought he was a really great, you know, a very good player in CSS. But then it just seems like
it's like a human Simpsons character. But even so, I agree. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, you are. That is true. That is true. God, that's tickled me. Yeah, I never thought about that before, but you're right. But anyway, it just seems like what they've done is they've slowly but surely dismantled all of the fucking firepower they had in that team. And it's like, you know, how can we... the composition is just completely off. Like, I mean, the addition of Devil Walk, I don't think that's worked. I don't really see where all the frags are coming from. And when Nafly was playing, he was regularly dropping 25s, 30s. Yeah. And they let him go. So
I mean, the obvious answer, Rich, is get rid of XP3 and bring in Powth. We see it's all.
Which one though? Which Fouth?
Yeah, exactly.
Bring in fucking Fouth. Get Plusher. Let's get fucking.
Yeah, let's get them all.
Let's get them all, mate. So yeah, fuck that for a piece of news anyway. So yeah, Winterfox, well done. I don't know if it's one of those cynical pickups just because there's a major qualifier and they're like, well, yeah, we'll pay for everything, and then like when they fucking crap out in the groups, Winterfox are like, yeah, get fucked, like the classic esports thing to do when there's a big tournament around the corner. With that said as well, on a similar note, again, I'm sticking a tip in, Duncan. ROCCAT, MixCat, and now ROCCAT. No, they were the team that had... Here's another thing. Pronunciation. Is it Joel's or Joel Z?
Who the fuck knows, mate? I don't know. Luckily, it doesn't matter because that guy never goes to LAN. So.
Yeah, we'll never have to worry about that on a fucking analysis test.
No.
That little fucking online cunt. We'll never have to worry about that.
Not a problem.
But anyway... That's probably a bit harsh. That's going to think you would say, that little online cunt.
I wouldn't call him a cunt myself. He hasn't done anything absolutely disgraceful, like have one bad game on LAN that would deserve me calling him an actual cunt. But, you know.
That's the thing. He's actually safe from your criticism because he's never going to go to LAN. So, yeah, I probably should have called him a little online cunt. I do apologise. Anyway.
Okay.
I just went fucking mental for no reason. But anyway, so ROCCAT have picked up this team, and it's going to be Juho, Stonda, Sunny, Zarte, and Narsu. Now, Finland, in this sort of iteration of Counterstrike, they haven't had a top-tier team, really. It doesn't really feel that a lot of the talent got recycled, and they were able to make a good CSGO team. Is this time for Finland? You know, they're under ROCCAT, a famously Finnish, you know, brand. Is this the time? Is this the team to do it?
I mean, if we're being honest, no. Like sad thing is, at this tournament they were at now, they had 2 maps on Dust 2. Apparently Dust is the best map, I guess, where they went 16-14 with teams, but they still lost the series. And aside from those close maps, yeah, it wasn't that competitive, actually. Like it's not like they were coming super close in the other maps. So that's not a great sign. Like, again, you're not going to gradually build your way. If you're a decent team, you're going to kind of show most of it when you come right out the gate. You know, it's nothing really to be hidden in that respect. So, yeah, a little bit disappointing, I have to say, when you think about it that way. I mean, when I think beyond that, I think that the problem is there's just not the players in Finland right now. Like, they've... Over the course of the 2 or 3 years, they have had like 6 or 7 players who were good enough, but they never managed to get all of them in one team at one time. And there'd always be one of them had like motivation. Like, I'll give you an example. In this team right now, 2 of the players who are good players are... Actually, the one that's the main player I'm thinking of is Narsu, who's Lurpus's brother, where he was a really good 1.6 player, but has never fully committed to CSGO. He just plays it like a bit and on the side, and it seems like he doesn't want to go 24/7 into it, even nowadays when there's loads of money. So he's just a weird player in that sense. Like, if someone's not going to be fully committed to it, well, they never are going to unlock all their potential, you know. The other good player was a guy called Aslak, who previously was playing with some of these players.
He was a fucking monster, actually.
He was a really good AWPer, but then he had like literally choking issues where he was having to get like some sort of medicine prescribed by his doctor because he was just getting too stressed out, even by exams and stuff, I think, at school. So there's obviously something going on there. Then you have all these other players who, some of them are decent, some of them have just only played small lands. Yeah, the problem is there's not an obvious 5 that stand out, and there's not an obvious 5 that would work together. So at the moment, sadly, I think there's not going to be a finished team for quite some time.
Just as a little point of information to add to that, I definitely would tell people if you are going to watch this team and follow them, definitely keep an eye on Stonda. I think he's like a ridiculously underrated player. Like in CSS, when he came on the scene and started AWPing, he was a fucking beast. Like, this guy was unreal, the kind of shots he was making. Go out and find some of his frag movies. He had a bit of a hiatus from CSGO, but he's back. He's got lots of hours under his belt, and if he plays like even to 70% of the player he was in CSS, this is a guy that's gonna fucking, you know, stand out. And I don't want to sound like fucking Rattlesnake with the fearless top 5 AWPer thing, like, but Stonda really can go fucking toe to toe with the best, like when he's on point. Like, he proved that multiple times in the past. So I kind of want the team to succeed just for his sake, because he was a great player to watch, like really exciting towards the end of CSS. But anyway, that's the news for them. They're going to be flying the flag for ROCCAT. I hope that's a long partnership, and again, not just one that they've picked up just for the majors. So, talking of majors, the tip's back in. Cloud9 are there. They're going to be in Cluj. They did it by beating that ROCCAT team that I just highlighted. They also beat, I think it was Dignitas. Yes, that's correct. They beat Dignitas as well, and their problems kind of continued. AZ and Schneider standing out, no one else sort of doing it. But I thought what was interesting is just about the sort of Cloud9 composition. There's obviously some talks about them right now. They're going to make a roster change. There's some rumors circulating online that Get Right's going to be going there into that team. That's already been reported on a few websites. I've certainly heard that rumor. And the new look Cloud9 would be Get Right in for Sean Gares. Sean Gares acting as a coach, standing
now,
behind him and
Rich,
calling
I know
plays.
that can't be true, see, because what's happening there is, apparently, Cloud9's players just don't know anything about how Cloud9 works internally, and they don't understand how hard Cloud9 players are playing. And the Cloud9 players don't realize that it's time to give Cloud9 players more credit for how good they were in making all those finals. And why would you even talk about them changing a player? Like, everyone on that player team's sick, and Cloud9 players obviously don't understand how good nothing of Cloud9, the Cloud9 player, is, because they're all really good players. And if you just give them time and they have the same practice as Europeans, they'll be as good, Cloud9 the players. Cloud9 players should understand in actual big tournaments. So I can't see it happening myself.
I've never seen you say Cloud9 so many times in such a short space of time.
Without the words cunt, shit, and overrated.
Yeah.
Dispersed loosely and, sporadically throughout.
And spare me Freakazoid. That as well, obviously.
I haven't even mentioned Adderall. Oops, there I go.
there it is. So no, but I mean, look, okay. So let's say there's some credence to these reports, right? Let's say there is some truth to it.
Also, to be fair, Rich, doesn't Get Right have some sort of like intestinal issues? Like, maybe like Adderall's going to fuck with him, mate. Like, I'd be worried about that. Maybe have like a toxicology panel done on him first.
Right, are we done? Are we done with the drug use? Are we done? Right, so no. I mean, look, if Get Right does go there, I think first of all, a lot of people are going to say, well, that's a payday. That's what that's about. It's not about joining a team, because obviously the other team he's strongly been linked with is Fnatic, potentially replacing Crims, which in terms of just winning things, it's not even an insult to Cloud9 to say that would be a much better move for an individual player. So some people will say that, but let's just divorce ourselves from the fucking, money and morality and wildness of this theory. Let's imagine Get Right does go in for Sean Gares. Let's imagine that Sean Gares is moved to coach, as has been rumoured to be the case. That's going to happen in the team. Is that a team that all of a sudden is propelled into being serious contenders for majors and other sizable tournaments?
The problem is, in terms of firepower, it obviously helps. That my biggest concern is that I think it would make them a really, really one-dimensional team. And as much as I already think their problem is they don't have enough aggressive players, because the two aggressive players are Nothing and Freakazoid, and they're quite obviously, aside from Sean Gares, the weakest players. Like Nothing, incredibly inconsistent, doesn't usually show up in big games. Freakazoid does what he can. He's just not a really good player, and he's going in first anyway. So to me, if anything, if you're going to add a star player, I'd make him a really aggressive player, because the two stars they have right now are very passive. Like they're two of the most passive star level players in the world, and they've got both of them in one team. So I actually think just the fact that GetRight's so famously, he's the ultimate passive player, that I think that could be the issue there. You've got all these players with a similar style playing in the same team. So listen, it can work still. If everything goes your way, you can work and you can win, but it's going to make certain teams super hard counters to you, and you're going to kind of be limited in what you can do in terms of the team. Now, hey, maybe they know something about GetRight I don't. He's going to go back to being an entry fragger or something. I don't know, but I can only base it on what I've seen so far. So I think that's the concern. More firepower, so maybe they can be better than the recent Cloud9, but I'm still not even sure that would make them like a top 3 team.
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued by how it would all work, but I definitely think having Sean Gares as sort of a quarterback, if you like, in the sense that he stands behind the team and he calls the plays, and you add GetRight's firepower into the mix. Sure, he's not an aggressive player. He probably will still want to play in that lurking role that he's made famous and is clearly so very good at. But actually, if you look at the qualifiers that just happened for this major, Nothing was really firing on all fucking cylinders. He was being very aggressive and it was working. Freakazoid, yes, he was his usual hit and miss self, but I think that's part of the problem. If you're the guy who's always going to go and take that shot, if you're the guy that's always going to push off a spawn and try and get somewhere before somebody else, then it depends what spawn they get. It's always going to be a hit and miss style. I think when you look at Freakazoid's play style, I don't think you could take statistics into account, actually. I think they could be deceptive. When you are that pure entry fragger, I think it can be deceptive. But I think all told, I know it's definitely got to give them a bump in the rankings, right? Like, it's the kind of move that I think will work straight away. I think they'll be improved majorly straight away. So if it does go ahead, I think they'll be in a much better place. In terms of, can they mix it up with the elite level teams? I'm inclined to agree with you. I couldn't see them beating a inform Fnatic. I couldn't see them beating an inform EnVyUs, maybe. I think man for man, maybe even TSM as well. And I know, obviously, Cloud9 have beaten those teams in recent memory and beaten them in best of threes as well. But I'm just talking about, optimally on paper, with all teams being at their best. I think they'd be a little bit outgunned. But I don't know. I think, first of all, it shows something very important, that Cloud9 are now willing to make a serious change to get to that next level. And they obviously want to get there.
I think that's a positive, the idea that they are willing to make a change and obviously, for Cloud9, I don't think it's necessarily a bad gamble to take. You get him one of the all-time great players who's still better than, I don't know if he's better than everyone on their team. He's definitely right up there. He'd be very, very good even on their team. So it's definitely worth a gamble. I'm thinking more from everyone's point of view. Like, is it worth it for GetRight if there's other options? So I still think there's a lot of question marks on that move.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest question mark, of course, is whether or not it's just bullshit, right? I mean, let's not rule that out. I've heard the rumor. I've heard the rumor from people I think are credible sources, but, it's not anything I've sort of had time to really dig into with all the events and stuff I've been going to. It's not anything that I'd feel comfortable reporting as fact. All I know is that it seems to be that NIP is dismantling and GetRight's weighing up his options, and I think he'll end up either at a team like Cloud9 or a team like Fnatic. I think a player as good as GetRight can pick and choose where he wants to go. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. Right now, let's do it. Let's do a big piece of news. Scream! He joins Titan. He hooks up with his old chums, some of the people that have pushed him out, like the fucking Eskimos, or Inuits, as you have to call them these days. They put him on the ice, and the old man, and they just pushed him out, and bye. You're too much of a drain on the tribe now. You have to go out to sea and freeze to death. Bye. He's back now, baby. He lived. He fought in the wilderness of fucking Gamers 2, and he's been brought back into Titan. Now, all of a sudden, with Maniac
he
going out.
He basically went out and was raised by feral animals, Richard, by not what wolves, foxes actually. Yeah, he made his way back in the end. Okay.
By the most feral of all animals, the fox fan. But the you know, obviously it's Maniac that's going out. Now, we've talked about this for a while. Maniac's been kind of half in, half out for a while. He's had, obviously, lots of job offers. He's a very accomplished and intelligent individual. And, you know, I respect this. I think he's given as much patience as he can over to, like, when's Titan going to click? When's it going to happen? Because it's not happening. And I know he's not the best player in the world, but he's performed well above the level you would expect him to for the longest period of time now.
No, he's done everything he can do. That's the thing. Actually, Maniac, during his time in Titan, has won my respect. Like, before, I thought he was just like... I thought he was a drain on the team initially. When Kenny S and Kaylee were going absolutely ham, actually, he was the guy where I was like, okay, when they won DreamHack Stockholm last year, I was like, he didn't even do anything in this win. Like, he actually played fairly badly, but they won the tournament. And yet, obviously, when you win, you get all the credit of you're on a top team and blah, blah, blah. He wasn't very good at that period in time. He wasn't really, like, earning his keep, as it were. But actually, in 2015, especially as Kenny S started to go downhill, he really put in work. And he elevated his game, and he got his game to where, with his skill set, he was playing way above the level you'd expect from him. And as a result, I have a lot of respect for him as a support player. And I hope, like, at the end of this segment, we can even talk about the fact that he suggested on Twitter that he's not done. So I think there's a lot of teams out there could use a player like him, and he could actually be a surprisingly valuable resource in that sense. But anyway, in terms of him as a player, no, it's true. There's nothing more he could do in Titan. Like, at this point, the only reason to really keep him in Titan is if EZSkins has been really hitting the bottle too hard after those games. He's going to need, like, a liver transplant or something, or a kidney or something. And maybe they already scouted out that Maniac was, like, a viable donor or something. They was keeping him on hand, you know. Aside from that, I can't see any point to keep it going, you know. The experiment's been run. We've lost Kenny S. We've lost Apex. It has to be some sort of a star player comes into the lineup at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you know, with Scream coming in, you know, I'm just looking at the team. It is a very different prospect. Like, no disrespect to Maniac. Like, again, I agree with you. I think he can be a valuable asset to some teams. I don't know which team it would be that would pick him up. I'm glad he's not done. I think the scene would be far worse off without him, just as a personality. In fact, even if he is done and he can't get on a good team, I hope someone like ESL or someone like that gives this guy a job, because he's wonderfully articulate, very intelligent. I think he'd be great on an analysis desk, way better than us two, in fact. Yeah,
I think my French accent's better.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you made a lot of friends with the Apex impression. But, like, you know, you look now, you've got Shocks, RPK, and Scream in one team. Now, if we were to rewind and say 18 months ago, this would be a fucking wet dream for French fans and for Counterstrike fans in general, right? In its current form, is it still a wet dream, Thorin?
Sadly, no, because none of them are at that level. Like, none of them, literally. I mean, Shocks shows some decent glimpses now, and his trend, he is trending upwards. The trajectory's going well there. Scream, like I said, he never really dropped off a halter. He never became terrible. He's still decent. The problem is, of the three RPKs, like an absolute shadow of even what he was at the beginning of CSGO, never mind what everyone tells me he was in CS Source. So, unfortunately, much like many teams that we've all seen before, when you finally do get round to making the super team, it's rare that by that point in time you really are the best. I mean, to give you an example, whenever everyone used to say how everyone used to laugh at the concept of the super team, because they'd be like, oh, Real Madrid, when they had the Galacticos. Yeah. Those guys, well, you know, they had the best players of all time and they weren't even winning. Yeah, all right, mate. Like, wasn't Figo like fucking 35 or something? And Zidane was about the same age. Like, it's not like they were in their prime and they all teamed up to just wreck everyone. They all did it, like, towards the end, when in a way they needed each other to, you know.
Yeah. I mean, but, look, I haven't seen enough of Scream lately to make me think he's going to fix all the problems in Titan. And the problems in Titan are quite simple. They've had firepower issues. Again, it's that classic thing. They haven't been fragging. They haven't been winning duels. They brought in Smiths, you know, who's taking up the AWP. He's better defensively as an AWPer. So then all of a sudden you put all this pressure on Shocks to be an entry fragger, which isn't his natural game at all. He can do it because he's just such a good natural aimer, you know. But I don't think it's his natural game. I think Shocks is a more kind of just an open player, like someone that just likes to be picking up the frags, like you bait for me and I'll kill 3 people, but like, we need to go together. He's like, someone else is the point man, but Shox is the cleanup guy. That's how I think Shox plays best. EZSkins, God bless him, he just keeps on fucking going. It's getting sad, in my opinion. I think it's getting towards the Evander Holyfield levels of sad. Like when the real deal Holyfield, who'd been in all these great fights, just couldn't bring himself to retire. And he was fighting bums in these 4-round spectaculars, like fucking ex-Dorman and stuff, and just getting beat up, and then he loses on points. And you're like, what the fuck? Just stop now. Please, just stop this, Evander. Stop. Stop. And he won't stop. And, he keeps talking about, maybe I'm going to win a major. I don't know, man. It just feels like I kind of feel like that window of opportunity has been slammed shut just by the march of time, and I think it's fucking sad and depressing. And I'd love EZSkins to be this hugely decorated in-game leader because he was a pioneering in-game leader. But I just think the modern game, I don't know. I'd love to see this team do well, but I just don't see how they can. Honestly.
Yeah, the problem with this team is that the storyline and the names are a lot sexier than the actual team right now is. Obviously, we haven't seen them play a game, so we don't even know what level they're going to be at. But just trying to do like theory crafting and putting piece X with piece Y and then trying to figure out where it is in the current climate, it's hard to see that even if things go absolutely perfectly, they could ever be in the top 5. That would be a massive stretch. Realistically, I think if things went really well, they would be where the old Titan was, or where like Titan Dignitas, those sorts of teams, like bottom half of the top 10, maybe climbing towards the top half. If everything really kicks in again, if Shox is fragging well, if Scream does have a really good impact, if they can make up for the fact that whatever they're losing with the support role of Mania, if they can figure all that out, I still think EZSkins can tactically be really good with it because he still has that hard to execute style, which will always have its own place, especially as a counter in the modern day of so many people using the looser style. So that'll always be a natural counter, as you saw when they used to play Fnatic. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's one that's like it's sort of a slow burner, I think. We're going to keep that in the background. We're going to keep our eye on it every now and see if it's ticking over. But I'm not like expecting him to just blow the doors off at the next 2 events and suddenly become some crazy good team. I think that's unrealistic as an expectation.
I mean, we touched on it a little bit earlier. This new patch, Scream style, and this patch, we've had a bit of time to sort of play the game now and actually see how it feels. Can you imagine Scream getting back to being the man that was dubbed the human aimbot now that this patch is here?
I actually do think that if he is one of the few people who stays with the M4A1, I think it does suit his style a bit more. I mean, it's never going to be the AD style that he really wanted, but you can burst a bit more now, and the fact that everyone else is going to the M4. Here's the weird thing. Everyone who's using the M4 in general, that's the sort of weapon you stand still with, or if you're running, you're not going to get super accuracy, you're just going to try and tag them up with bullets, or you even sit down and spray with it. So in a weird way, if you became really phenomenally good at bursting like he used to be, and you use the M4A1, actually, you're going to get a lot of easier shots in theory, because people are just going to be sat there, and they're just going to be running around wildly, not hitting you very accurately, and you can just target them and take them out. Now, with that said, obviously he's going to have to raise his level if he's going to like dominate using that. That's going to be a hard style to make work. So you have to have a fantastic game. You have to have really disciplined technique. So I am interested. That is like a little, okay, in the same way I said if Kenny S becomes really good in EnVyUs, they could become much better. That is a little window of opportunity there where maybe there is a potential that something can change.
Well, I'd like to see Titan. As I said, it's that they're all such great names. That have contributed so much to Counterstrike. I'd like to see them get back to it, but I'm not convinced. But maybe we get proved wrong. I don't know, but I'm not sold on it. I certainly hope this isn't the end of Scream again, because I don't know how many more chances he'll get with the French teams. If he comes into this team now and underperforms and doesn't do well, I don't know if he'll get that like 3rd or 4th chance or whatever.
This is the last chance saloon. Yeah. Like, put it this way. Think about all the beef that went on between Titan, EnVyUs, all the rivalry, all the heated battles they had, and yet they still brought Apex back, who is the whole reason the French shuffle happened. And essentially, I mean, this is obviously the wording that fanboys use. I wouldn't use this wording. If you want to characterize it that way, he essentially betrayed Happy and sort of said, fuck you, I'm taking all your best players and leaving to go join EZSkins, your rival, because I think he's better and I want to play with him instead. They took that guy back, who wasn't even playing well when they brought him back, rather than take Scream, who's just sat there the whole time like, guys, can I join? Seriously? No. Seriously? No. Yeah. I did my best. I'm working with scraps here, Rich.
All right, good job, mate. Right, Gamers 2. what's left of them now with Scream out of the
well, obviously, Rich, they're just going to set it up like the early 2015 Titan and just base everything around Fox and give him the AWP all the time. In fact, now Makalele is going to take the Glock that Fox drops him, drop him an AWP in return, boost him, and he's just going to frag the whole team probably because he is one of the top 5 players in the world. Scream, if anything, as a dedicated Kingwin fan, I think Scream was actually holding Fox back, and Fox is just a fantastic player. Caralho! Whatever that means. I still don't know what it means.
I still don't know what it means either.
Fuck the pussy or something. I don't know, but in which case do it.
In which case, yeah.
I'm going to Google it now. What does Caralho mean? Let me have a look.
It's probably his asshole, isn't it? If the people are saying it to you.
Let's have a look. That's good. Portuguese. It means fuck, apparently.
Yeah.
It's just like the curva.
Oh, well, when I look up Caralho, it says
fuck, cock,
taboo.
Dick, penis.
Yeah. Taboo Portuguese word for the male sexual organ. But it is also commonly used as an expletive or to express emotions like surprise. For example, can also be used as a noun referring to someone either out of exasperation or without meaning to offend. So, stupido do caralho is you fucking idiot. Oh, yeah.
You know how euphoric the Foxmans must be at this segment, Rich? Like, we even speak in their language, literally.
Yeah, I know. Hey, look, I fucking love Portugal, man. You know that. I've been to Lisbon a bunch of times. It's a great fucking place. I love it. Like, so.
If they have a major there, I'll also agree that it's a great place, Rich.
It's really true. It's really weird, actually. I saw. I didn't see a statue to Fox built anywhere. I was really surprised and disappointed. So they don't even. They lack the courage of their convictions. If he's so great, build a statue. Go on. Exactly. So, anyway, it looks like Fox has been fucked, basically, like, if these reports are true. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of context around this. So, prior to DreamHack London, right, like about a week before, I had a few of my regular sources come to me, and they went, Rich, man, you got to check this shit out, okay? Like, NIP are going to take 3 of the Kingwin Gamers 2 players. And I was like, okay, which 3? And they were like, oh, it's going to be Dennis, Makalele, and Rain. And Dig Life, the big company that obviously we know owns NIP, they're just going ham for it, and they're going to pay top dollar. Now, this is interesting, because Ocelot obviously has nothing to do with Dig Life. And they were in, Gamers 2, and he's picked them up. And it's, that must have cost him a pretty fucking penny if the buyouts are to be believed. Unless, of course, Kingwin are in such bad financial straits, they're just looking to offload as quickly as possible. But,
that's the thing, Rich. When you might buy a game for like $60 when it's released. But if you really need like a $5 to go out drinking, you just go to the, what's it called? That
Game
shop.
Station.
Yeah, you just go to all those shops, you sell it, and they'll like give you £2 for it. You're like, all right, I'm not going to play Crash Bandicoot 3, I guess, so I'll take the £2. So maybe that's what they're doing with all the players.
Well, again, think about where you live. Linthorpe Road is the road of broken fucking dreams, isn't it? Where it's just like every second shop is a cash converters. And you just see, I remember one time, actually, this is going to fuck it onto a Counterstrike, but this is just how unreal Middlesbrough is as a rule, right? I used to work selling mobile phones up there, and I was coming back up Linthorpe Road. And there was a guy outside of a cash converters wearing, like, tracky bottoms covered in, cum stains and hot rock burns. Like, and he was going, I've got the deeds to my house. like, what the fuck are you doing taking that to a cash converters, you fucking smack rat? What are you even doing? What are you even doing, mate?
Yep.
So anyway, I don't know. Yeah, brilliant. It is brilliant. So I don't really know how this ties into the story I'm telling, but just getting back to it.
Meanwhile, Rich, people actually think I hold the opinion that Britain is some sort of like imperial wonderland idyllic zone that's so much ahead of like fucking Poland or whatever. No, it's not, is it? It's got full of fucking heroin addicts where I'm from. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's like it's the place in the UK to come to for cheap prostitutes and cheap heroin. That's a fact. I think it's got the lowest price of heroin in Europe and the lowest price of prostitution in Europe. And I'm definitely not into either of those things. So I just read it in a study independently. It's got nothing to do with anything else. So anyway, back to this epic story. So they told me, like fuck it, like look, they're gonna acquire these players. But keep in mind, as I said, Ocelot must have paid his organization, unless they literally offloaded them for free to him. He must have paid some serious money because, think about it. Rain, his buyout to even get to that lineup was 40,000 euros, and that's not even argued. The buyouts that were in their contracts apparently were 150,000 euros each. I mean, that was the word on the street. I have no idea of whether or not that's verifiable, especially at this juncture. But anyway, so it looked like the lineup that was going to come out for NIP was going to be Get Right flying across to the land of Cloud9, and Forest, Exist, Makalele, Dennis, and Rain were going to stay. This also ties in with what we knew about Arlu, that, he's soon to be a father and probably is gaming CSGO, competitively isn't going to work out for him. He's going to concentrate on that, which is great. But both Gamers 2 have come out, and Ocelot publicly said on Twitter, saying no one is going anywhere. All our current players are more than happy to stick in Gamers 2. And if anything, they'd be coming to Gamers 2 because why would anyone want to join a dying dinosaur? That's what he said about NIP. Right? Now, Ocelot and Dig Life do not get along. So the idea that they've done some sort of backroom fucking handshake is bullshit. So either Ocelot's getting fucked and he can't see it, like some Godfather type play has like fallen into place and he's about to get fucking Mo-greened and not even see it coming, or there really is a serious Titanic struggle going on to keep the players. Now it gets even more interesting because the CEO, I think it is, of NIP, Per Lillyfelth, which I'm no doubt pronouncing it wrong. It's probably Fair Lillypelth or something. I don't know. Just to keep that going as long as possible till it's not funny. You should be proud of me. I didn't take the easy joke when we were talking about ROCCAT, and I didn't call it Pinland. I could have done that. I didn't. I'm better than that. So anyway, they're fucking. He's come out and said. There are no roster changes planned at the moment. Our current players will continue under the NIP banner for the remainder of this year. Their first upcoming tournament is Gfinity in Birmingham, and then they will compete in Cluj, the next major. We've all seen an improvement in performances of late, which is true, actually. NIP have started playing because it's YOLO playing. I think they don't really care anymore. And we're excited to see our boys continuing their streak of good results. So, you've got Ocelot denying that they're going to NIP and saying, if anything, the NIP boys are becoming a Gamers 2. You've got the CEO of NIP and obviously a Dig Life saying, we're not going to do anything. And yet, I've heard these rumours. People I trust have told me that this is definitely happening. It's all over the internet now. Publicly, it just looks like whenever we've been in these situations before, it looks like what is rumored usually goes on to happen. So, first of all, I just want to ask you about the fucking likelihood of this based on your extensive knowledge.
I mean, it's not something I've specifically heard. Like, I don't ask people around for that sort of thing, so I don't have any inside knowledge myself. I will say the logic that, well, if the players say it's not true and the CEO says it's not true, then it can't be true. Ha ha ha. Do you know anything about history? Like, come and fucking look back at the history of esports. I mean, someone quoted it in the Reddit thread where there's the quote from Alu in February where he's like, I am still a 3D Max player and I'm fully committed to the team. Like, 1 second later, I am now in NIP. Ha ha. Goodbye, everyone. Like, these players, for some reason, these morons don't know the concept. No comment. No comment. Because if this now happens, you can best believe I'm going to make a video and I'm going to call out Freiburg, I'm going to call out Rain, I'm going to call out Ocelot, I'm going to call out Perfil Lillifef or Lilliput Lane or whatever the fuck his name is. I'm going to call them all out and I'm going to put them on blast for the fact that they just lied to our faces for no reason. They gain nothing from it. Their stock doesn't somehow go up before the negotiation by lying about it. That doesn't happen. So either it goes all their way, of which fair play, you're allowed to make the statement if it's false. But if you're just telling lies, then you're going to get called out for it. And in the past, you didn't get called out that often, but you're going to get wrecked this time, mate. So you do deserve for wrecked.
Yeah. Oh, mate. Well, it's a point close to my heart. I'm fucking so sick of organisations calling out, honest journalism. And it's just happened to me again today over a fucking League of Legends story where it's like, look, if you want me to fucking go public and prove that you're lying, I'm now at the stage where I'm going to do it. I'm so fucking sick of it, sick of hearing it. Every time I publish a story, no, look at this ridiculous report. Yeah, all right then, what's that? What's that, you fucking cunt? What is that? Yeah, it's you saying exactly what I fucking reported, isn't it, you little prick? So shut up. All right, that's just it now. It's like, you're in a perpetual fucking war as a journalist with, Here's the thing. I don't mind if people want to fucking... It's not even like, okay, no comments optimal. But even if you deny it or say something fairly inoffensive like we haven't made a decision yet, I can get on board with that. I'm all right with that. Even though that's a lie, it's a little white lie, right? And I can get on board with it. But when you come out and you're like, haha, look what the Mongo journalist has written. Fuck him. Never trust a report by him. That's my fucking job, you know what I mean? Like, that's my fucking livelihood. That's my permanent reputation I have to carry around with me in every fucking job I do. Like, that's it. You can't just fucking, you know, it's unbelievable, in fact, that it's still going on to this day. Now, here's what I will say. I know enough about this situation to say that Ocelot and Diglife, they are not in cahoots. They don't get along. I imagine there is going to be some fucking backroom brawling going on this one. I definitely don't think Ocelot will want to sell. Especially, like, he'd been trying to get into CSGO for so fucking long. You know, Gamers 2 had that, like, sort of substandard Polish team. Don't say anything, Duncan. Yeah, that's substandard. I said substandard. I said substandard. That, you know, he had that Polish team. He wanted to get a good team for as long as I can remember. He's done it. Finally got like a team made up of good players, fan favourites, people that have market value. And now, according to reports, what's he going to be left with? Fucking Fox! You know what I mean? That you wouldn't wish that on anyone. That's unacceptable. Like, you know,
it's kept the crown jewel at least, you know.
No,
he's lost some of the stones which go around it, but the central piece, he's still got the valuable piece. A lot of trade value there.
Yeah, it's so. I definitely I think Ocelot's going to be pushing back and trying to resist this. But what I'm worried about is, like, I know how these Diglife guys operate. They're fucking unreal. They're like next level, like, you know, they're snakes. there's no two ways about it. And I just wonder if something has gone on, but behind the scenes. I mean, keep in mind, okay, I don't know if you know, did you hear the story about how this all got leaked anyway?
No, what happened?
Oh, mate.
Someone translated some shit, right?
Nah, mate, okay. So I got sent screenshots, which obviously I'm not going to retweet. I'm not going to do that. I'm not into that. Okay. But basically, I can't believe what I'm about to say. It's just so retarded. So apparently, Heaton and his girlfriend have had some sort of domestic issue. And on the screenshots, she has been talking about how there's been a betrayal of trust. A lot of people are saying that he might have cheated on her. I don't want to get into that salacious nonsense. I'm not interested in that. Okay. But that's what the screenshots that have been sent to me say. Now, apparently, he happened to mention that this is happening for NIP. And she...
Classic.
Yeah, right. And she has said to people, like, just as a sort of backlash thing. And again, I got sent...
Spite.
Yep, the good old spite. Now, I got sent screenshots of this. And I can't believe this is happening at this level in esports. If that's true, if those Facebook screenshots are legit, and I've got no reason to think they're not, it's just another ridiculous moment of amateurishness in something that we're desperately trying to make professional.
You remember, Rich, whenever we talk about iBearPower getting banned, I always stress that they never could have been nailed on this particular issue if that girl who was the girlfriend of D-Borns, who apparently got mad he cheated on her with someone else, hadn't leaked the individual information, like the literal smoking gun. If that hadn't happened, they could always have had plausible deniability, banded together, not let information get out, denied it all, and they would have survived. They would have made it through just like so many other people did in these scenarios.
Yep.
But again, fucking around, again, if you're going to get into some crazy shit, just use your brains, guys. If you're going to fuck around on your girlfriend, don't tell her, like, sensitive, secret information before fucking around and then wonder if it's going to get out there. Plus, that's such a low-grade way to get back at Nip. Listen, love, you seem pretty good looking to me. Like, Nip fans hate me. If you were to get into some sort of, like, romantic tryst with me involved in a three-way relationship with Heaton, I think that would be the ultimate way to get back at the NIP organisation.
Yeah.
And just whispering to my ears shit that you heard about over the years about, like, the team. Like, yeah, Freiburg actually didn't even want to go to Banana. Exist made him. Like, it'd be brilliant. That'd be the way, right?
Yeah, and that'd be well worth the risk.
Set your sights higher.
That'd be well worth the risk of getting torn apart by Emil, wouldn't it?
Oh, buy a meal. I torn apart. I was worrying where you're going there, Rich. I thought maybe some rumors had gotten out from some of my past girlfriends. You know, they call me the blender, Rich.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I don't know, man.
As I'm actually having sex, I just whisper in their ears, the Lannisters send their regards.
Stop this. Oh, the thing is, I sincerely want this to not be true. I honestly do. But the whole thing is, NIP is such a clusterfuck organization at the best of times. Like, people don't realize this. People think that the NIP organization facilitated the success of the greatest CSGO team in the game's history. That's not true. That team succeeded despite the NIP organization. It was, you know, sure, okay, they salaried them. Yes, they gave them great salaries. They were one of the first teams to do that. Yes, they brought in big sponsors. They were one of the first teams to double down and really support CSGO team and have it as a flagship organization. Yes, they relaunched a classic Counterstrike brand and gave them that. But seriously, behind the scenes, that organization was a fucking mess.
Wait, but they did get those crisps and the chocolate made.
Yeah,
they got that done, right?
Yeah, and the McDonald's, the fry burger, yeah, all of that, right? That was great, right? That actually happened. But here's the thing: while all of this was going on, you know, there was lots of stuff behind the scenes financially that was a fucking problem. There was just constant pressure on the players to keep winning because they'd overspent. No, it was just a fucking nightmare. I mean, it was a fucking nightmare. And if you look at what they did when they tried to pick up a League of Legends team, for example, you saw they're inept, like, just so inept trying to get into LCS. Like, we'll just buy everything. We'll just buy everyone. We'll take every shortcut ever. Oh, what's that? The team is shit. No problem. What's that? We'll get Lemon Dogs as a feeder team. Oh, no collusion here. Like, just everything they did was so fucking inept and overplayed that everybody could see right through it. And it sucks because I like Emil. But I don't even think Emil has anything on paper anymore with the organisation. I think he got pushed out when Diglife came in. The whole thing's a fucking shit show. The whole thing's a shambles, man. And those, like say, those players have had to endure all that bullshit that's going on. And now here we are again with another fucking comedic clusterfuck coming out of NIP. And, you know, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? In this instance, and I never thought I'd say this, I'm more inclined to be, like, in line with what Ocelot's saying. You know, I don't like the way Diglife have handled themselves at all. I don't like the way that the pre-Diglife NIP handled themselves, frankly. And I think those players would be better off out of that fucking environment. And honestly, any players that are thinking about joining that fucking organisation need to fucking know what time it is. Because the money might be great, but that's as good as it's going to get. So... yeah, anyway.
I mean, I think it's sad that Heaton's even embroiled in all this because, unfortunately, there are so few legendary players who even are connected with the team they were played for or in any way involved, even if it's just as like a talismanic, like, totem for the team, you know. It's cool to have those people around. I guess there's Khan to a degree, but even he's kind of in the background now at Fnatic. There's so few of them. It kind of sucks when there's all this shit going around outside of that.
Yeah, you know, I couldn't agree more with you. And it's like, I always feel like Emil has always been... unlucky. I guess if you're unlucky more than once, maybe you need to point the fingers at yourself. But you know, like, I think he's been really unlucky in the sense that he's just a gamer at the end of the day. He's just a regular dude. He likes games. He likes football. He's down to earth, and he seems to kind of get pulled apart by these business types. You know, I see him as a victim sometimes in all of this as well. You know, like
you know what they say though, Rich? There is that saying that says, lucky at cards, unlucky in love. So maybe he's just cleaned up at the casino.
Yeah, well, he's got some fucking cleaning up to do after this fucking shitstorm. So anyway, look, let's just imagine that somehow it's all going to be amicably resolved and all the drama and all the nonsense isn't real, and we're not going to get torn apart by Heaton next time he sees us for talking about it, which please don't, Emil, you're so big. Please. But
I don't support another football team from Sweden, mate. Just leave me alone, please. I'm a nerd.
So, what do we think of this new look NIP stroke Gamers 2 lineup? So again, just to clarify, this is Forest, Exist, Makalele, Dennis, and Rain.
Let me think. Forest, Exist, Dennis, Makalele, Rain. That's a pretty good lineup, actually. That'd be pretty exciting to see. Actually, I never would have thought you'd get that sort of combo. Actually, that's not bad. I mean, presumably they'd still have Exist be the in-game leader, but that might not even be a problem because you've got a lot of talent there. But at the same time, what's key is you've got Rain to be like the really stable player. I guess between Forest and let me think, between Forest, Makalele, and I think probably Dennis, that they're probably going to be your main overall fraggers, like frames. So I guess Exists kind of be kind of like a supportive in-game player. I think that could actually work. That could be a good team. Actually, I'm not sure how good. But I wouldn't mind that little that would be a cool little mix to try. I'm not sure that, unfortunately, that it's necessarily a lineup that can live up to the legacy of Nip. That's the downside. Like, it's unfortunately when it's Nip, when you think of a team like a Manchester United, some all-time great team, the Los Angeles Lakers in basketball, New York Yankees in baseball, when you make the big transfer, it's supposed to, unfortunately, be the no-brainer every time. It's supposed to be, we need this sort of a player. Here's exactly that player who does the best at that role in the world. We're paying him the max possible money. He comes in, and everyone knows it's going to work, and if it doesn't, there'll be all hell to pay. Unfortunately, it's not that sort of lineup. There's a lot of question marks where it could go wrong in, like, every direction, basically, there. So it's cool as like a lineup to make, but I'm not sure it can live up to the Nip legacy. That's my problem.
Yeah, I don't think it can live up to the Nip legacy, but I think it's a good lineup. I think it addresses some of the issues of some of the people that have been lacking firepower in NIP lately, and on top of that, I think
it's also worth pointing out, I didn't think of this before, but that is really, in theory, the only way you could get Makalele back in Nip, because as we've already discussed, apparently Get Right had the friction with him, whereas apparently, if you look, people like Forest seemed to love it when Get Right was, when Makalele was going off and getting all hype and stuff, so maybe Forest, he doesn't mind it, so maybe that's how it works. If Get Right does leave, maybe it makes room to bring Makalele back in, and we all know Makalele, already a fan favourite, was a huge fan favourite with the Nip fans at the time.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's an interesting one. It's a situation to monitor. I gotta say, all the pieces fit, rumours wise, and I've heard it, like say, a week prior to it all happening. So very intrigued. And of course, the thing you're forgetting, Thorin, in all of this is it paves the way for the dream team, Freiburg and Fox.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. The dream team. Well, maybe, Mitch, here's what we do. We put together all the great, really underrated players. So what happens is Gamers 2 pick up Freiburg, Fox,
Hunden,
and Maniac.
And Maniac.
In one team.
With Hunden.
Oh, yeah. But
with Hunden as in-game leader.
Hunden there as the spiritual leader, yeah.
Do you know what? I'd actually like to see that team. Can we just make this happen, guys? Like, because I know you all watch the show. You obviously do.
Listen, if you guys in Portugal really love Fox, you'll start a Kickstarter tomorrow to raise $2 million for us to buy Dignitas' CSGO team, kick them all off, and make a dream team around Fox and a bunch of other players that you think are good. If you really love him. If you don't, if you won't put your money where your mouth is, then shut your fucking mouth.
And the chat is going wild because
whatever Portuguese pesos or whatever you have, I don't know. I don't get paid in that sort of money. I mean, apparently it'd be like the whole GDP of your country to pay me some normal money. I don't even know where I'm going with this switch.
It's just I do, unfortunately. But like,
pesos out of my grill.
The chat is going wild because we've missed out Pauf. We should have got Pauf in this lineup as well.
The meme team.
Idiot. So, what would it be? It would be Hunden, Fox, Freiburg, Pauf, Maniac. Holy shit. Can we make that happen? Can we get them together for one game or something?
I'm putting it at the feet of the glorious nation of Portugal to make this happen.
Right, okay. It's on you, guys. It's all on you. Nuno Ferreira and company. And Mr. Domino PT. The most reasonable and logical people.
Rather than planning how to kill me and Rich, just fucking raise some Skrilla, get all your bread together, and get a team going.
Yeah, just do it. Prove us wrong. Prove us wrong. Me and Thorin live to be proved wrong. That's what we're all about. So, I guess to wrap up the show, because it's that time, do you want to do a little chat about Gfinity and what's going on there? Well, I mean, take it away, because you were actually invited before I was, technically. You were announced as talent. I don't even think they've announced that I will be there in some capacity yet. I don't even know if they're going to.
It's been mentioned.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy thing about this tournament. I actually think of this tournament a bit like I think of the first PGL final they did in, I think it was like April this year. I think it was around that time, where we had like those 4 really top teams go, and it was going to be a format where, because there's no fluff, there's no group stage, there's no chance even for some fluke best of 1 upset. It's just top teams playing really sick series against each other. Now, it's not quite as god tier in as much as at that time it was almost the top 4 teams in the world. Now, you haven't quite got that now because obviously TSM isn't going to be at this event, but you've still got a fantastic format and really good teams. The teams at this tournament are EnVyUs, who obviously we know, fantastic team, just won DreamHack London, final of the major. Fnatic, winners of the last major, top 4 in like, I don't know, something like 16 tournaments in a row or something. NIP, who apparently are almost dead, but okay, maybe it's like the one last hurrah. And Virtus Pro, who just had that incredible Dubai tournament. So 3 of these teams are absolutely world-class teams. And NIP have the pedigree of being so, and maybe they can have one last surprise. The tournament format is, it's single elim, and you're just going to have 2 semis and a final. We don't know yet who plays who, but it's going to be 2 semis and a final, and all series are best of 5. So this is going to be fantastic because, okay, if NIP play and they really can show us one last hurrah, it's going to have to be in a best of 5 against either EnVyUs, Fnatic, or VP. So that's a hell of a challenge. Meanwhile, we're going to definitely get a matchup of something like Fnatic, VP, EnVyUs, Fnatic in a best of 5. So this is going to be fucking fantastic. I can't wait. This is going to be one, even though it's not a monster tournament, like it's not a major, you know, I'm still really looking forward to this tournament because of the fact it's guaranteed you're going to see some incredible CS, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, what I'm hoping for is that it's going to be EnVyUs and NIP. Obviously, get that rematch from Dubai going on. Fnatic VP is probably the most exciting matchup right now in Counterstrike. You want to see those guys go at it. Everybody said about the major in Cologne, it was the Fnatic Virtus Pro semi-final. That was the real final. That was the entertaining game. That was where Fnatic had to dig deep, pull out the miracles, and you know, Virtus Pro since then obviously won fucking Dubai. So this is like super fucking awesome. And then obviously that paves the way potentially, but by no means guaranteed, for a Fnatic EnVyUs final, which is what I would like to see, because I want to see, you know, EnVyUs and Fnatic potentially, you know, go head to head. Go, you know, that's what I really want to see. So, but what's interesting as well is, like, with every team having won a Gfinity before, and it's like this champions to champions thing. No, I thought they had. I thought it was what...
NIP haven't won a Gfinity, mate. They only won Assembly. But here's the thing, Rich. Here's the problem. Because EnVyUs doubled up and won 2 Gfinities, VP and Fnatic won each, VP won 2 overall, they needed a 4th team because there's only been 3 champions. So what
I
see. Is invite the fan favourite NIP. Hey, fair enough, but I'll just point out they didn't win one. So,
all right, thank you very much for correcting me. But anyway, I still think this will be, you know, a really fucking great tournament. Like, I'm super psyched about it. I'm really glad that I'm going to get to be there and be part of this one. And it's like you say, you know, the best of 5 format. Like, thank fucking God, more and more people are embracing this, because, you know, best of 3 is great. We love them for group stages, you know, maybe even some early knockout stages. But the definitive test right now between any 2 great teams, you want to see them go at it best of 5s. So to have that straight away is fucking awesome. Like, really, really awesome.
And there can be no excuses in this tournament.
Nah, no way. No way. So who do you think's going to take it? Like, what's your gut feeling going into it?
This is one of the hardest tournaments that you could ever try and do that from. Because, for example, a lot of these tournaments, my baseline answer is obviously Fnatic, because overall they're so good. It's going to be really hard to win best of 5s, because essentially in a best of 5, here's why I think they should be in the final of the major. In a best of 5, if EnVyUs really was playing better than Fnatic, they would have overcome even losing the Dust 2 game and then the Cobble one. They've had 3 more maps potentially to do it if they'd have really kicked it into gear. So it's going to be hard for Fnatic if they play EnVyUs and VP in best of 5s. Like, I still think Fnatic can do it. The problem is, at the moment, it feels like VP and EnVyUs are so hot. Yeah. See,
you do know that's going to get turned into a little clip now that you've said that.
My gut still tells me to go with Fnatic. I think Fnatic still overall, when you consider all of them, and I don't know who's playing who yet, I think they overall should be able to make it. But in terms of like intuition, I mean, it does seem like EnVyUs are phenomenally hot right now. EnVyUs can do almost anything if they hit their super peak level. I just don't know if they will. So I'll just stick with Fnatic now. I'll go with the safe pick, I guess, considering the rest all have some big question mark. I think one thing I can tell you is I'm almost certain NIP can't win because of the format.
Yeah, well, I'm doubling down on EnVyUs. Doubling down on EnVyUs. I think there might be some doubts about them in a best-of-5 situation. I definitely get that. I think maybe, well, inarguably, Fnatic have the deeper map pool right now. I would even say that with Virtus Pro's mastery of Train, you know, and they're a good cobblestone team. I mean, I think it's there's an argument to say Virtus Pro has a deeper map pool right now than EnVyUs, but I just think the form that they're in, the confidence they're going to take from winning at DreamHack London and entering into a tournament like this so soon, I can't look past them right now. I honestly think EnVyUs will win the second tournament on UK soil.
Like, to me, the big danger for Fnatic is actually VP. I think VP in a best-of-5 can seriously fuck them up. Like, that could be that's the scary matchup where if Fnatic can beat VP in a best-of-5, man alive, they're going to have to dig deep. They're going to have to get everything out. Or they're going to have to just come in much better form than we've seen in the last few tournaments. EnVyUs now, even though EnVyUs looks super hot, the thing is, historically, Fnatic have always held it over EnVyUs. That's one of the things that Happy hates, is that for all his incredible success, you can always fuck with him by just saying, yeah, but you always lose to Fnatic, and EZSkins pretty much, you know, tends to beat him and compete with him. Yeah. And he'll always be like, damn it, I almost had him. Like, that's the one thing he can't get replied to, you know. So EnVyUs, now would be a great time to finally overcome them best-of-5 format, but I still have to see that happen before I really believe in EnVyUs to beat Fnatic in a best-of-5.
Yep, I can't wait to do it, and I can't wait to be there. I guess that's it. I guess that's going to wrap up the show. I think we handled everything tactfully, diplomatically, in our usual fashion. Any final thoughts about what has been a crazy couple of days in CS?
No, I'm just glad the cycle's really kicked back in when we've got all these tournaments coming up. We've got the major qualifier going on at the moment, and obviously, I mean, that in itself is going to be interesting to see what it shakes out, who actually comes into the big major. Yeah,
I feel actually, I don't think there's really time. I don't want DreamHack to think that we've been disrespectful by sort of glossing over DreamHack Stockholm.
No, we'll do that next week.
Yeah, we'll pick up that next week, no doubt about it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it just feels that we're in a real good place right now. As I said, there's big announcements coming all the time. I mean, you saw today, DraftKings are getting involved in esports now. They've started sponsoring 6 of the big organizations that are known for Counterstrike, and interestingly enough, Complexity is one of them, along with SK Gaming and Mouse Sports, alongside Cloud9, TSM.
I mean, that's all well and good, Rich, but if I'm honest, Alphadraft's #1 for me.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, I think we're going to start seeing more and more big businesses coming in. We've got, what else have we got coming on? I mean, I still think we're not a stone throw away from a big sort of TV kind of thing that might be happening soon. You know, I honestly believe right now, as we move into 2016, the money that's going to be in CSGO, the level of investment that's going to be in CSGO, the interest that's going to be in CSGO, I think it's going to be fucking awesome. And long may it continue. So,
goodbye.
No, I do the wrap up.
Yeah, my bad.
I do the wrap up.
Do you have anything final to say, Richard?
So yeah, basically, obviously, thanks to all the people who watched the show. Thanks for Alphadraft for making this possible. It's incredibly awesome that they allow us to go absolutely fucking ham and never once complain about anything we've said. Like, literally never. They are probably the only company that would be willing to sponsor Duncan Thorin Shields, all of his content, all of his deranged thoughts, and the voices in his head. So thanks very much for them. And of course, if you do like the show and you want to show your support for this show, which you fucking should, by the way, you assholes, if you're watching it, you should go over to the alphadraft.com website and you should sign up there, where they do all of these fantasy gaming, I think I have to say, not betting instances. But you can bet, you can play for real money there, you can play for free. And if you're a Counter-Strike fan and you know a thing or two about the game, certainly more too than us two, you will win some money. So there you go. That's that. That's me, Richard Lewis. I will see you all in Birmingham. Looking forward to it. I'll see you there as well, Duncan. So keep the heating on. Oh, stay warm until then. And to everybody, until the next show, which will be Wednesday at the usual time of 8 o'clock UK, may all your drafts be alpha. Peace.